Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku joined Girls Only Club? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. No more war, spoke a maiden, before mythical yellow light engulfed everything. That was how this bizarre world was created, or what the legends say anyways. Not many people truly care how the world got the way it is. They're all too busy indulging themselves in the surrealness of it all and seeing what they can get out of it. Who can blame them? To them, there's no reason to pursue any answers when one can just enjoy their current reality. This is a world where any conflict can be solved with a game. Working strong at his desk was the UA University principal Nezu, a strange combination of several different animals molded into one singular fluffy body. He was currently getting everything prepared for a school event that was going to take place in a few days, and of course, that meant mountains of paperwork had to be done. If it wasn't for the satisfaction that came at the end of it all, then he would have quit his job years ago. He just wished that the process beforehand wasn't so boring. Having the gates of hell randomly break open was starting to become something he wished would happen. Thankfully something came along that could pique his interest. "Principal Nezu, that boy is here to see you," said a feminine voice over his intercom. The principal quickly went to answer. "Thank you, Nimiri, send him in." Setting down his pen, the white critter did a quick stretch. Usually, these types of situations are just some students having a petty problem that could have been solved on their own but instead decided to get outside interventions. This case was going to be a little different but just as redundant. Oh well, a little break from all this planning will be nice. I might even get to have a little fun myself. A few minutes after the quick call, the door to the office opened, and in walked a green-haired teen. Judging from his body, he was between the ages of 18 and 20 years old. Nezu could instantly tell he wasn't a student here, not only because he memorized the face of every student, faculty member, and staff in the school, but also because the boy wasn't wearing a school uniform. Everyone who is a part of this school knows the rules, especially if they're planning on approaching him. "Welcome, Midoriya," greeted Nezu from behind his desk. "Come sit, maybe I can get you some coffee or tea." As Izuku approached the chair across from Nezu, he told him, "I'm fine, thank you for meeting with me on such short notice." Of course, it's not every day that someone makes a request as odd as your own. Sending it by spray painting and trashing school property was quite risky. "I'm surprised you managed to do that while leaving behind no prints." "Sorry about that, I was afraid if I sent an email or letter it'd be ignored and I wanted to make sure it got your attention." "Well, my attention is now yours. What can I do for you?" "I know it's a bit sudden, but I would like to get right to my request." "Ah yes, your request. You want to be admitted to this university far past the acceptance date. You could have just applied next year if you were so eager and avoided all this trouble." "I would have missed my goal if I applied next year. If you don't mind me asking, what could you be after that made you go this far?" Nezu asked him, taking a sip from his coffee. They've had cases before where someone had issues with the acceptance date, but it's usually them finding some excuse as to why he couldn't finish everything they had to before the final day. Usually, if they're lucky to have gotten most of the requirements done and depending on how they play their cards, the university might make an exception since the semester hasn't started yet, making it easier for a last-minute addition. This guy is asking to get in a few weeks after the semester already started and has none of the requirements done. Calmly Izuku answered him, "Overall, I just want to rule this school." Nezu stayed silent for a moment. He blinked blankly as he waited for Izuku to continue speaking. He withheld saying anything as he wanted to give the boy time to fully explain himself. Maybe he misspoke or there was more to his statement that he was letting on. The dead serious look on Izuku told him that he meant what he said. As if he was being told a grand joke, Nezu burst out laughing in a maniacal tone. "That's it. All this trouble because you want to control a school. Here I thought you had some grand goal that you needed to do, but instead, it's just some youth's attempt of a power fantasy." After calling himself down a bit, Nezu continued, "That's one of the worst reasons I've heard someone say when they're asking us to accept them late." A confident smile appeared on Izuku's face as he states, "I thought as much. It's a good thing I wasn't asking to get in right. I remembered I requested a challenge." Setting down his coffee cup, Nezu would tell him, "You know, you're not even close to being the first person who attempted to get into this school like this through a game. You know what'll happen if you lose. Of course, if I lose, I'll confess my crime and the school can take full legal action against me for everything I vandalized. But if I win, you'll allow me in the school. Simple." Izuku answered. He knew of the risk the second he came up with this crazy plan to get a meeting like this with Nezu. "We've already agreed to the terms, picked the game, and set the win condition. I would like to skip all the unnecessary talking and get right to it, please." This comment got Nezu grinning wide as he replied, "You're pretty eager. Okay, I'll play with you for a bit. Game set." In this world, there's no need for violence, there's no need for weapons, and there's no need to throw a punch. Why would humanity need any of that, when any problem can be solved by playing a game? Nearly anything can be obtained if one knows the right games to play. At least, that's how the world should be. "I lust." The disbelieving words Momo said, looking down at the Go board in front of her. For a moment she stared out the window of their upper story room to see if this was actually happening. Seeing as nothing was out of place, that meant it really did. Hey, don't feel too bad, her opponent Setsuna told her. She had a toothy grin on from her victory, but she wasn't going to shove it in her friend's face. It's extremely difficult finding a game you don't eclipse me in, and even then you were really pushing me in the beginning. Too bad you fell at the end. A small groan came from the raven-haired girl before she grumbled. That was because Saiko kept distracting me with her very biased narration of our match. Momo then snapped her attention toward the girl sitting at a table away from them with pale lavender hair. She was busy tending to her nails. Such shameful slander. Saiko called out, not taking her eyes off her nails. You're the ever-brilliant Yaoyorozu Momo. It'll be redundant to narrate your moves. I was simply commenting out loud all of your excellent plays. Well, until you lost anyways. Liar, stated Setsuna. You were being passive-aggressive because someone complimented Momo as being our best player. Wait, wasn't that you? Momo pointed out, quickly puzzling it all together. Did you taunt her on purpose so she'd bother me till I start messing up? I plead the fifth, replied the lizardy girl. Her grin growing even wider gave it away. You did, didn't you? Hey, it's not my fault her jealousy is triggered by a mere compliment. As Momo lectured Setsuna about the actions she was trying to deny doing, Saiko was off mumbling to herself. As if I'd be envious of anyone, I'm the smartest one here. Snap. There it was, that sound they've been hearing periodically all day. It made the girls stop for a moment. Please tell me you sent the complaint to the staff. Saiko asked the two other girls. I made sure they got it this afternoon. They said they'll send someone to check it out tomorrow morning. Good, for such a prestigious university I'm appalled that they let their rooms for a club be so unmaintained. I've been complaining for months that this place feels like it might fall apart at anything. Relax, Sai, you say that over every minor thing. It's probably not that, Setsuna stated. 1. Don't ever call me that stupid nickname again, Saiko quickly snapped, holding up a finger as she counted. 2. I don't say that over every minor thing, and 3. What do you suppose it is? I don't know, Arette, exclaimed the two other girls. While Momo squirmed from the shiver she felt down her spine, Saiko let out a grin of disgust. That's your guess, I expected better from you. Hell would freeze over before they let a rodent roam the school for this long, excluding the principal. Setsuna nonchalantly shrugged before turning to the squirming Momo. Back to the task at hand, you lost. You know what that means. Gee, that's not fair, you played underhandedly using an outside person, Momo said, trying to create a case for her loss. Don't matter, nothing I did was against the rules and so the results are the results. You lost, the brunette stated, giving her a smile that showed off her sharp teeth. I'll take melon juice and curry bread. Golden oolong tea and those chocolate biscuits you always get me, Saiko added in, going back to the tender care of her nails. You mean the ones I buy for myself that you eat anyway? Momo replied, giving an annoyed look. Yeah, those of course, Saiko scoffed, humored as she thought Momo wanted to specify which kind she wanted. They're the only kind I can eat. I don't know where you go to find mine, but all the other kinds I find are usually revolting. Setsuna gave a snarky remark. I guess she should buy you her favorite extravagant cheese as well and maybe some nail polish while she's at it. No, I'm feeling nice today so I'll hold back on my demands, Saiko answered, blowing on her nails to clean them off and admiring her own handiwork. Thank you though. Momo tried to speak up. Saiko, I don't think she. Can you get going already? I'm getting quite hungry and I don't want to feel faint because you wanted to discuss something trivial. Fine. Momo sighed. She had a little pout as she got up. The store was quite a walk away for her and would be a bit tiring for anyone after a long day, thus sparking the game Setsuna abruptly challenged her to. Regardless of her feelings, she lost and so she was the one that had to go. I'll be right back. Before she left the room, the door opened. Standing there was Izuku Midoriya. Looking around the room he saw the three girls and the more preppy style of the room. If he's correct, this should be the room he's looking for, so he asked them, "Excuse me, is this the Killer Queen's club room?" The three girls stared at him like he was some mutated monster that stumbled into their room. It made the boy feel a bit uneasy with the sudden attention. In hindsight, their reaction shouldn't have been surprising as the club was named the way it was for a reason. They didn't usually get male guests, especially ones that seemed to not be a part of the school judging by the lack of a school uniform. Yes, Momo answered, carefully confronting the boy first. Can we help you? My name is Izuku Midoriya and I want to join your club. He proudly states, giving them a friendly smile. The eyes of all three girls widened at this. Setsuna was the first one out of them to speak. If Saiko was drinking tea right now she would have broken her dignified image to spit it out. I would never, Saiko quickly told her, though, if any of us were drinking something a variety of comedic hijinks would have ensued. Too bad we weren't because someone is taking so long to get them. Poor Momo looked around completely confused at first, wondering why the lavender-haired girl was staring at her with such impatience. Why are you yelling at me? Momo bewilderedly asked, gesturing a hand to their guest. He's the one who stopped me from leaving. No offense, she continued, turning toward Izuku and apologetically holding up a hand. I'm not throwing the fault of her attitude on you, she's often like this. Hey, it feels like I stumbled into the middle of something, thought the boy, feeling a bit awkward. It was going to make things worse if he bailed out now, so he continued, it's fine. Anyways, about me entering your club. You're not joining, Saiko cut in, putting on her glove. Harsh, but she's right, Setsuna adds on. Stop it, hushed Momo, disappointed in her rudeness. Turning back to the boy with a smile and telling him, sorry about them. Anyways, I'm afraid we can't let you join. Since you're not a student, and also we kinda have this silly rule about no boys being allowed to keep the theme of us being. Well, queens. Oh, I am a student, Izuku tells them, pulling out from his pocket a golden badge coated with UAS school colors. It was something provided to all students to have to prove they're a student there, essentially their ID for the school. That was the third big surprise the group of girls got within a span of 5 minutes. Momo was stunned silent as she was stuck between curious and surprised. Saiko was getting aggravated with the constant surprises, and Setsuna was getting real interested. See, I just got in today and Principal Nezu said all students are required to be in one of these clubs if I want to be a part of the school's event, so I decided on this one, Izuku continued. Make that the fourth one. That was the last straw for Saiko, taking up the mantle for Momo. She told him. Okay, listen closely cause I don't enjoy repeating myself to strangers. I don't know how you managed to get that badge or if it's even real, but we already stated we won't accept you. If you are a student here, it doesn't matter. We said no boys, and unless you have some surprises tucked away, you are one. Since you're new, I'll be nice and say, please respect me and my friend's rank here. You can't just walk in here, asking nicely to get things from us. Trust me, we may not be the biggest club in this school, but we're not to be messed with. Though the others didn't speak, the look on their faces told them that they agreed with her. That last bit of information made Izuku smile. They're all got strong resolve. This is perfect. That's why I came here. I heard that this place has some of the smartest people and best game players in the school. Why join a club with 36 meh players when you can join one with 3 top-class ones? A very flattering statement. It even made the confrontational Saiko stop for a moment. Reaching into his back pocket, Izuku continued, Look, I know you all seem steadfast about not letting me join because I'm a guy who entered today. Which is why I wasn't asking, I was challenging. Make that 5 ... It wasn't the first time someone tried to get in through a game. It was mostly the recent turn of events that made it shocking. They were prepared for this sort of thing. Oh, right, that'll be your answer for this, Momo mumbled under her breath with a sigh of relief. She was just happy this dusty-haired guy wasn't some creep that stumbled into the school to cause issues. Saiko groaned as she said, Another one. I already did 4 of them today. Momo, please take care of him. Don't hesitate to beat the dirt out the hair of this rude newcomer. Metaphorically, of course. Oh, let me do it. Setsuna exclaimed, jumping to her feet so strong that the floor creaked. He'll be fun to play with. That was when Izuku delivered their 6th surprise. Actually, I want to challenge all 3 of you at once. In a single game, as I don't want to waste you girls' time. Are you sure about this? Momo asked him, not sure if he was crazy or just overconfident. Izuku nodded his head. Since it is obviously stacked against me, you won't mind if I pick the game right. What kind of game? A simple one, no tricks or anything, just this coin, Izuku stated, bringing out a dusty yen coin. Seeing their confused look, he told them the game they were going to play. I'm going to flip this coin up to the ceiling. Whoever catches it first wins. 7. This guy is just filled with surprises today. Alright, what's the catch? Saiko called out. That's obviously a trap for something you got up your sleeve. Let me guess, the coin is rigged to give you an advantage. You got something in your pocket that'll stun us, or maybe your quirk is something that'll drag the coin to your hand. No catch, Izuku told her, tossing her the coin. It's a regular coin. If you want, you can toss it yourself. I got nothing in my pocket and promised not to bring out anything during the game, and I'm quirkless. You're quirkless, she repeated. Yup, I got the official certificate and everything. Saiko was about to question his intelligence but then went against it. He's probably lying through his teeth to catch them off guard. It doesn't matter, whatever he brings out they'll be prepared for. It'll save them all the brain cells if they just play and make him leave right after. Fine, let's just get this over with. I'm not waiting a moment later for my treats. Game set. In the principal's office, Nezu was working on the papers he had since that morning, but this time he had a happy smile on his face. When Nimuri enters the office with another stack of papers and sees him, she comments on it. You've been in a good mood since this morning. What did you play with that kid? A simple game of chess, Nezu answered, not looking away from his work. Chess, Nimuri repeated. She looked almost pitying that they played that game. Poor boy, you must have toyed with him like you always do in that game. What did you do with this one? Give up your queen early so you have a challenge. Only use half your board to win. I was going easy on him at first, but then I decided to go all out on him. Why do you have to be so cruel? No wonder you're so happy. You must have utterly defeated him. I lost the game. What? You just said ... that you lost. Sorry, I didn't hear you correctly. Yeah, I lost the game. Izuku Midoriya was his name. He's a student now, just as we agreed. Nimuri dropped the paper in her hands as strong as her jaw dropped. I'm not cleaning that up, you know. I picked up enough things off the floor today, Nezu tells her as he looked at the mess she made. How what? How did you lose? It was chess, that was one of your specialties. Nezu chuckled to himself as he thought back and told the story. A few moves have gone in the game, while Izuku made a move after spending nearly a minute thinking over each move. Nezu being as skilled as he was made his moves almost as soon as it was his own. Despite the difference, they both still had on a calm face, essential for a battle of minds that was chess. The rumors were true. You're outstanding at this game, it's almost suffocating, Izuku states, his breath becoming ragged as the game went on. There's a reason why of all candidates I was chosen to be the principal of this university, Nezu explains. Tens of thousands of people try to extort others through games every day. This school is no exception. You need a player whose status seems high class if not near unbeatable if you want to drive most of these people away before they even think of challenging you, and the skills to back it up for those with a similar status. Never losing a game of chess is quite the status to have. Everyone has a game they're the expert in, at least anyone smart would. The ending of this match was decided the moment you made it a game of chess. You never know, I might surprise you. Maybe in another game, but not this one. I recognized and went against every probable strategy in this game. Every move, every decision, and every mindset, I have a counter to them. There's nothing you can do I haven't seen before. You want to bet on it? You're that confident you have something up your sleeve to beat me. I haven't failed yet. A game isn't over until it's over. Might as well keep trying until the end. So what do you say? Nezu's smile continued to grow, taking another sip from his coffee before replying. Now you have me interested. Okay, I'll accept. You win if one move you do surprises me. Then I guess it's time we both play for real, declared Izuku, making his move in only 10 seconds, a dramatically quicker time than before. What happened after that? Mimiri asked. She was on the ground picking up all the papers she dropped, but she was emotionally on the edge of her seat. We played for real, Nezu answered. Well, at least he was actually playing with all he had. I treated it like a real game, but without it being too much of a challenge I could be completely serious. That means you were winning. I was winning, but then. You don't need to repeat what I just said. Sorry, continue. Have you regretted challenging me yet, Izuku? Nezu had asked. There's no way I can regret something like this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I'm playing in. You seem pretty happy to be losing. Don't forget what happens if you lose. I will applaud that it's impressive you survived this long with no records. I don't know why you couldn't just apply to the school regularly, but whatever it is, I don't mind helping you bypass it when you apply next year. Nezu assured him, all I have to do is wait for his king to take the bait of my knight that I'm forcing him into and it's game over. I haven't forgotten what'll happen and I don't intend to lose. I have to ask, how did you get this good? I knew how to play the game. Which is, a secret like that would be nice to know. It's not much of a secret. In a world like this, pure physical might means nothing. Some will say the key to winning a game is how good of a player you are. Others will say it's how smart you are, since all games have some sort of strategy to them. The truth is, it's just how smart you play the game. I completely agree, you're utterly outsmarting me here. Don't feel too bad, knowledge comes with age and experience. But I do disagree with one thing. Really now, what? As much as I would like it to be true, it's unfortunate that I have to say that pure strength in this world isn't completely meaningless. And then what happened? Mimiri shouted, mad that he just suddenly stopped. Nezu snapped out of the quick daydream he fell into, saying, oh, he flipped the board. What? Without warning, when it looked like Izuku was going to reach for his rook, his hands changed direction and grabbed the board, flipping it into the air. While the pieces were flying wildly in the air, while Nezu looked wide-eyed at the spectacle, Izuku calmly reached up. Doesn't that mean he lost? Mimiri asks. Flipping the board is only considered a loss because the person is usually left in a rage or no longer wants to play. During a game, that doesn't end it unless the person has admitted defeat or that they have lost. Pieces in a chess game, especially during a game, can easily be picked up and continued. That was how he won. I'm so confused. What? He won when the board landed. King takes the knight, Izuku declared. This confused Nezu at first until he looked at the board that had landed back on his desk. His eyes widened when he saw where Izuku's king was. While everything else was scattered across the room, only the king was standing upright on the board. He remembered the exact positions of the entire board, and it was a legal move to make. You were able to make a move like that, said a flabbergasted Nezu. That moment lasted for a second before he realized what had happened. Sorry, but this was a trick that could only work on you once. And that's how I lost the game. Because he had made that move, I could have checkmated him in a single turn, but he got me by using my own attention to detail to make a move I saw coming to seem surprising, Nezu explained. Because he got you to change the win condition from something that would be impossible to do, to something probable, Mimiri mumbled. Not probable, something he could do. A smart player never plays a game they have no chance of winning, and an even smarter one tries to play as many games as they can where they're certain to win. I have no idea what his actual goal is at this school, but we certainly got a promising new student. He'll make a great addition to our collection. Back at the Killer Queen's club room, Izuku was still at the door facing against the three girls who were standing barely over a feet away from him. He positioned his coin as he prepared to flip it. Ready. Everyone's body tensed up. Each of the girls already had an idea of what they'll do against the boy. He was right about it being a thing he can do against me once. Nezu said, I was careless not really playing from the beginning. I don't think you playing seriously at the beginning would have stopped him from flipping the board. No, I didn't mean the beginning of the chess game. I lost because of one thing and one thing alone. Go. On cue, Izuku flipped the coin high just as he said, and in that moment all three of them began to move. I lost because I only started playing the game when the game started. Correct. He was playing the game way before it even started. When you get on a scale, you ever notice how when you get off it, for a split second the weight it displays spikes before decreasing? That's because you use force against the scale to push off of it to take a step off, increasing the weight the scale felt like it had. Now think about how high it would spike when you bend your knee to jump off of it. That's a lot of force going against the scale. If it was a living being, for that quick second it'll think you dropped a more obese version of yourself before the weight was lifted. At the same time, 3 young adults with admirable strength all pushed off the ground to do something, and that was when it happened. Everything has a breaking point. Suddenly the floor beneath them collapsed and all 3 fell down. Like clockwork, the coin flew into the air before falling back in Izuku's hand undisturbed. Game over, he says with a huge smile on his face. He bends over the hole in the floor to look inside. There the 3 girls had fallen over each other and were now entangled. They seemed to have landed on top of what looked like pillows. Seems like I won, Izuku calls out to them. What happened? Momo groaned from the fall. They were all trying to get untangled. Oh, this. After I got admitted I spent the entire day setting this up, Izuku explained. I had to work slowly so I wouldn't draw too much attention, and the flooring was pretty thick around this part of the building. Also, I saw a rat crawling around, so we should probably tell the school about that before they have babies. Told ya, Setsuna grunted, still giving a smug grin despite her pain. Shut the FCK up, shouted Saiko, not sure whether she was more PSS about losing to a person that actually quirkless in a game or that she was wrong about something. Sorry about fall though, I hope the pillows did their job. How about I make it up to you all by buying us snacks? Izuku called down, giving them all a sweet smile of friendship. Thanks, Momo said, finally managing to get herself and the others free. At least he's nice. I'm starting to really like him, said Setsuna, licked the edge of her sharp teeth. I completely hate him, grunted Saiko. The results weren't favorable to everyone and things that should have not happened became possible. That's just the way things are in a world where anything can be settled in a game. Izuku called out one last to them. Please treat me kindly, let's all be friends. We are a part of the same club after all. Game, set. These were the words softly spoken by a small little girl. Her unkempt off-white hair was long and flowed down to the base of her high-back white gamer chair. She dressed raggedly, choosing a dull gray plain-looking dress to wear. Sticking out of the right side of her forehead was a tiny horn. Sitting in a dark room, she stared into the bright light of the 3 computer monitors facing her, each displaying completely different tabletop games that the girl was playing online. All 3 were connected to a single pair of keyboard and mouse. While the games were loading, the little girl stretched her hands and shook her neck to get all the cramps out. Getting herself ready, she put on her headset and rested her tiny hands over her equipment. When each game began, she mumbled to herself, "Game time." Before she began, it was like a spirit that possessed her from how immersed she was in her games. A fierce cycle of rapid mouse clicking, keyboard button mashing, and split-second breaks to devour soda and chips. Flashes of light, the clicking of the mouse, and the munching of Doritos filled the room. In only a few short minutes, her efforts resulted in each screen displaying a victory. Game over, she declared, not smiling or cheering at her near-effortless victories. Instead, she quickly prepared herself for the next set of matches. This was only the beginning and the night was still young. Over and over again, she played and the results stayed the same. Victory after victory after victory, never once suffering a loss or having the fear of losing come across her mind. The longer she went on, the more wins she got. The only thing comparable to the stack of wins she was getting was the mini mountain of wrappers being left by her desk. Game over, she declared once again. This time it had more enthusiasm about it as she sat back in her chair to relax. In celebration, she took a victory spin, apathetically enjoying the high-speed motion as she cheered, "Victory!" The spinning gave her a great look at her room, it being filled with teddy bears, toys, and trash of the things she has been eating for the last couple of hours. All things she can entertain herself with but she had no interest in. She washed down her accomplishments with more matches. That was when the lights were SWCH on. Entering the room was Izuku Midoriya. Eri barely gave notice to the lights of her room turning on, which wasn't surprising as she has a habit of being too engulfed in games. She barely paid attention to her surroundings. For all she cared, a robber could break into the house, but as long as they didn't disturb her game she wouldn't pay them any mind. Izuku didn't need to put the effort into sneaking behind her. All he had to do was approach her from behind and speak. "I'm back, Eri." Almost immediately the small child swirled around in her gaming chair to face Izuku. Despite her apathetic face, her eyes still seemed to have light up seeing the boy. Instead of greeting him, Eri stood up on her gaming chair, dusted off the Dorito crumbs on herself, and jumped onto him. She clung to him like a baby chimp hanging onto its mother, embracing him in a huge hug despite her petite body. Izuku chuckled feeling the girl pressed her face against his body. Petting her head, he asked her, "Did you miss me?" Eri nodded, still hanging onto him. She looked up to him and said, "You didn't come home last night." "Last night? I was gone all weekend. I had to repair the flooring I destroyed for one of the rooms. Thankfully, Nezu allowed me to be on the school ground at nighttime. It ended up taking almost the entire weekend, and once I was finished I fell asleep on the floor. I'm pretty sure I called and left a message about it. Must have not gotten it. Our answering machine sometimes malfunctioned." Were you gaming all night again? No. It took a single look around the room to see the mess it was in and to know that she was lying. Picking her up by the arms, Izuku confronts her on her lies. I told you before to stop doing that. Staying up all night eating junk food and playing video games is bad for you. He tells her, playfully shaking her in the air, you gotta be more healthy. Looking unamused, Eri just pouts at him replying, okay, are you actually going to do it? Maybe yes, Eri answered, looking away as she whispered the first half of her reply. For all your skills, you're a terrible liar, Izuku says to her, poking her cheek. Anyways, I need to get ready to go back to school. The club I'm in meets during the mornings. You successfully got into the school. Yep, our plan worked like a charm. Yay, now get dressed, you're coming too. Do I have to? Yes, you've been inside for a few days now. You can't stay all day here. Yes, I can. Doing what? That doesn't revolve around playing games. Thought so, Izuku says, putting the girl under one of his arms and holding her there before walking out the room. Come on, you're taking a bath. We don't have much time. Struggling in his grip, a powerless Eri could only kick her legs around as she whined, Nuo, I don't want to go. The club room of the Killer Queens was awfully quiet. 3 members of the club were sitting down in silence, waiting for their newest member to arrive. In the meantime, they tried to keep themselves busy with their little activities. Momo was reading her books, occasionally having a soft smile come across her face before quickly returning to her normal expression, before anyone saw. Setsuna was casually laid back while on her phone, making gestures that looked like she was replicating the magic tricks she was watching on YouTube with one of her hands, and enjoying a bag of her favorite brand of chips with her other. Finally, Saiko was enjoying her morning tea, something light to start the morning off while she enjoyed a magazine. Utter silence. Crunch. Except for Setsuna potato chip eating. Crunch. Which on a usual day would be unnoticeable, but with the sudden silence it stuck out like a sore thumb during a manicure. Crunch. And it was PSS off the 10th Saiko through the 9 levels of hell and back. Crunch. Talkage, you mind toning it down? Saiko asks, trying to be as polite as possible. Your audible eating is grating to my ears. Not even looking away from her business, Setsuna calmly replied, sure, sigh, before eating another chip the same way as before. I told you never to call me by that childish nickname. Whatever you say, Sayol, Setsuna said, not changing a single thing that was asked of her. A vein bulged on the lavender-haired girl at her request being so openly ignored. Taking a deep breath, she says, Setsuna ... dear ... you mind not chewing like a literal donkey? Saiko, Momo exclaimed at her rude comment. I gave a fair warning. That doesn't excuse such a comment. Setsuna's chewing isn't even that loud. I didn't notice until you pointed it out. It's fine, Momo, let me just find the mute button on myself and turn it on. The lizardy girl sarcastically says, eating another chip. You're not helping, and you should be polite about her request about what you call her. Hey, I'm not surprised you can't hear that piercing sound, Saiko says, eyeing what the raven-haired girl possessed on the table. Whenever you're reading those books of yours, you block out nearly everything. What is even in that book to cause that? Taking a quick look at her friends, Momo swiftly memorized her place before closing the book and stating, that doesn't matter right now. Anyways, if the noise is too much for you, I have a set of headphones I'll gladly lend to you. I would, but those things will scruff up my hair, Saiko softly said, tenderly petting her silky hair. She takes great effort every morning to get it the way it is and she wasn't going to ruin it over volume control. Bloody tough situation you're in now, ain't it? Setsuna says, chuckling to her at the little accent she did. That's not even a good British imitation. Everyone's a critic, Setsuna mumbles before turning on her side, asking, when are we doing the meeting anyway? Remember our rule, we need to wait till all active members are present before we can hold this meeting, Momo explained to them. Still mad about the situation, Saiko tossed down her magazine on the table. Just thinking about that boy irritated every cell in her body. She crossed her arms to calm herself. Can't believe we have to wait for him before we have the meeting. He is a member now, Momo reminded her, regardless of any of our personal feelings on it. He has just as much as a right to be here during our meetings. Especially this one since it's important toward the club. I don't mind waiting for that guy, Setsuna states. A smile appeared on her grin. He's fun. He's a tricky rat, that's all, Saiko mumbled, picking back up her magazine. He couldn't believe that they, the renowned Killer Queens, are now being forced to wait on some boy who entered the school a day ago. It felt almost insulting to the strong work she and the rest of the club put into getting the reputation they have. He doesn't even have the decency to show up on time. He'll be here eventually, said Momo. She knew that no one would be as bold as that boy was to join only to not show up the next day without a word. It was a bit worrying as it meant something might have happened to him. I should get his number the next time we meet. It'll make it easier to contact him. Not speaking, the green-haired girl's eye wandered off as she thought to herself, should I start making moves of my own? Arriving fashionably late, Izuku opened the door and entered the room. He announced with a smile on his face, I'm here. Glad to see you are okay, greeted Momo, giving a kind welcoming their new member. Did you? Do you know how long you kept us waiting? Saiko declared, giving Izuku a fierce angered look. Setsuna sat up on the sofa, placing a hand under her chin as she mumbled, let the fun begin. You took up our entire morning PRD and we weren't allowed to get anything done until you got here, Saiko continued. She doesn't respect anyone who so carelessly wastes the time of others, especially if it is toward her or anyone close to her. It's only the first day since you've joined and you're already dragging us back. Saiko, I got this, Momo says, making the lavender girl settle down. Turning back to the boy, she explained, today was an important day for the club as we're to discuss selecting the class president for this year. It wasn't required, but it's our code that we wait on discussions and decisions on topics this serious until all available club members are present. We didn't want to leave you out of it just because you were new. Understanding, Izuku replied, sorry for being late. After I finished fixing the flooring I needed to go home to get something. He suddenly hunched over as if something smacked him on the back. Recovering, he continued, and someone. Seeing the strange action, Momo tilted her head to the side to look behind him before asking, is there something behind you? Oh right, where are my manners? Izuku said, turning to his side to show the little girl in a red dress hanging on his back like a baby chimp. She looked around with a blank expression on her face, seeing all the decorations and girls in the room with her big red eyes. Introducing her to everyone, Izuku continued, this is my sister, Iri. Cute kid, commented the sharp-toothed student. She stood up and went to the side to get a better look at her. For once, Saiko didn't speak. She just eyed the child with a peculiar look before going back to her tea. Shaking his back, Izuku tells his sister, say hi, Iri. Iri looked over to make eye contact with Setsuna, who greeted the little girl with one of her signature toothy smiles that showed off her sharp teeth. Quickly, Iri turned away, burying her face into Izuku's back to not be seen. She's shy, Izuku explained, reaching behind to pet her. I don't like them, stated Iri. Her voice was muffled from her position so only Izuku could hear her properly. And she doesn't like you. She's always like this with new people. And because they look like a bunch of preppy bi. And the prestige here is too new of an experience for her. Iri climbed up Izuku's back, getting up to his shoulders so they were on eye level and gave him a pouty stare for purposely mistranslating her words. Izuku nervously laughed before petting her head again. There was no need to start antagonizing people over a rough start. You have such an adorable sibling, Momo tells the boy smiling while she watched the two of them. As a single child, seeing two siblings bond was heartwarming to the point of jealousy. How long is she going to visit? She's not visiting, Izuku answered, facing the raven-haired girl. I want her to stay here, at least while I'm in class, then I can pick her up after school. No, Setsuna and Saiko both stated in unison. It was probably one of the few times they both agreed on a mindset without talking about it first. What? Momo was quick to explain the issue. While I'm sure you have your reasoning, this is a club where we're trying to hone our skills to be the best players in the school. We don't mind having a guest or taking a break, but we agreed on a strict rule on it so it wouldn't become a distraction for the other members. Some people don't like to be disturbed, even to the tiniest of noises. Her black eyes drifted over to a certain easily irritated girl before continuing. Something permanent or constant like that would be prone to causing problems outside of our club duties. Izuku seemed unfazed by the whole thing, saying, you guys sure have a lot of rules. I know it can be a bit overbearing, but for our goal, we find it necessary. I got our rulebook you can study. Yes please, that'll be hopeful. Momo walked off to one of the drawers to get the spare rulebook she kept just in case a member lost their own. Continuing the conversation, she tells the pair, if you really can't find a place for her to be, your sister can stay for a few days until you find a place. That'll work perfectly. Also, who exactly makes all these rules official? Well, as a club we all vote on it, but by school rules, it's the president who manages all the rules. Oh okay, I'll just become that then. What? A sudden feeling of déjà vu was shared between the three girls when they all shouted their response. From what I just heard, as far as the school is concerned, the club president manages the rules the club has. That means they should be able to create or revoke any rules they want at their own whim, Izuku states. A wide smile starts to appear on his face. Everything else is just camaraderie and RBB stamps. I'll simply become the club president and change the rules so that Eri can be here whenever she wants. Maybe take out anything else that's an unnecessary inconvenience to me. You can't just do that. Saiko yelled from her. She couldn't even fathom that someone would try this. The boldness to ignore every standard the killer queens themselves created and to threaten to claim the seat of club president, in front of her of all people. Yes I can, Izuku nonchalantly replied to the girls' uproar. There's no rule saying I can't, and I want Eri to have a place to play here. I'm going to install a new gaming PC right over there, mutters the little girl, eyeing a perfect spot in the corner. Like any respectable gamer, she had a vision of the perfect setup. A comfortable chair, smooth running hardware, and everything will be unreasonably lit up with rainbow colors. The dream. Now what do I have to do to become the club president? Izuku asked, looking around the room for an answer. I assume I'll have to challenge someone for the spot. After picking her jaw off the floor and handing Izuku the rulebook, Momo gave a brief explanation of the election process goes. As you know, every student here is required to join a club for other events the school will hold, such as the Treasure Wars. Because of that, they gave us a few weeks to months to get our clubs established and make other arrangements before we have to decide who we want as the club president on election week, where every club has to submit who they elected as president and vice president. Usually, by the time election week happens, the likely candidate would have already secured their spot. But if there's any objections or split in the decision for the club, let's say there are 2 influential members, then it's whoever can get over half of the members' votes. Only people that were a part of the club before election week can vote. Guess I joined in the nick of time, Izuku says. He internally almost panicked as he thought he might have been a day too late. All I need to do is get 2 of you to vote for me. 3, the 3 girls said in unison. What? Sorry, Bud, you need all 3 of our votes, Bud, Setsuna repeats. Why? Izuku asked, confused. So that you can have enough votes, Momo tells him. Yes, that's why I need 2 of you girls vote, Izuku said, counting them on his fingers so they can see. I'll have over half the votes if 2 of you vote for me because then I can vote myself. And you're not allowed to vote for yourself, Saiko coldly states, the edges of her mouth curled into a smile as she waited for the boy's next reaction. The dread of realization came over Izuku's face, turning his pale skin blue as he stammers, so that means. Putting down her teacup with a heavy thump, confidence radiated off of Saiko as she declared, you're going to have to get the 3 of us here to vote for you, including me of course. Izuku looked toward Eri, who shrugged her shoulders. Neither of them knew of this fact. Getting Setsuna and Momo to vote for him was one thing. With enough charisma and gaslighting he might not have even needed a game to get their votes. But if he requires all 3, then a wrench got thrown into his plans with Saiko here. Quick question, Izuku said, what'll happen if the end of the week happens and we as a club don't have a candidate with over half the club's votes? Momo told him, then by default, it'll go to the person who originally submitted the file that started the club. Which is me, Saiko says, giving Izuku a smug look as she sat in a form that showed off her prestige. She took a quick victory sip of tea for making the bold boy sweat for once after that humiliating defeat last week. Quickly coming to a plan, Izuku went into his jacket and pulled out a coin. Hey guys, so you want to bet some election votes over this guy? No, all the girls shouted. They learned from their first encounter with the tricky boy. Right? I'll be right back, Izuku tells him before making a quick exit. He left so quickly that Eri's tiny legs were flying in the tailwinds. All that could be heard from down the hallway the little girl's monotone voice calling back, bye. Satisfied with herself, Saiko went back to her reading. Hopefully, that'll teach him some decency. Maybe then he can act a bit more humble. You think that'll make him give up? Momo asked, looking back at her friends. Nah, Setsuna replies, laying back on the sofa. A guy like him, he'll be back with a new scheme. At least, I certainly hope he does. It'll be a major anti-CLMX if he doesn't pull out at least one last rush. As I said before, things are going to get fun around here. You really think so? If he does, he better leaves those sly tricks of his at home, Saiko states, because we. Guys, I just realized something, Setsuna interrupted. Her calm demeanor seemed slightly unsettled right now. If he was preparing to do that coin trick a second time ... does that mean he tampered with the floor again? All the girls stopped what they were doing and looked down at the wooden floorboards, quite concerned about how much weight they were putting on it. Who fixed it again? Saiko asked, distancing herself from her usual snacks. She didn't want to risk putting on even an extra P&D right now. He did, Momo answered. She remembered him being so nice and assuring her that he'll get it done over the weekend before they come back. Thinking back, that was a horrible idea. FCK. A few hours later, hiding in the branches of a tree that was planted on school grounds was our familiar greenet Izuku. He was holding binoculars and a notebook he was using to record actions and patterns that might be useful later. As usual, he was scheming something. His little sister Eri was working as a wonderful assistant, nonchalantly eating apples as she read a book. You find anything? Izuku asked as he looked into the school with his equipment. No, Eri replied. In front of her was the rulebook Momo had given them. Luckily for them, it contained both the club's rules and the school rules in general. Seems like Ponytail was telling the complete truth. You're going to need over half the club's vote and you can't vote for yourself. In the words of the principal, a lot of these rules were implemented to take care of cheaters who will try to win at the last second by inviting a bunch of people in exchange for special favors while still SBK things up by forcing students to meet certain conditions outside of their control. Great, looks like I can't loophole my way through this one, Izuku mumbled, scratching his hair while he formulates ideas. I can just play them all in a game to make them vote for. No, it was worth a shot. So you're going to challenge them all yourself? Of course I am. I can't keep relying on you forever. I want to improve as a player as well. I just need time and a plan, then I'll take them on. For now, let's collect information. They already got a great understanding of how the school worked, such as how classes work. As a college, the students aren't always in classes, leaving them with plenty of time during the day to put focus into their clubs, including recruiting other members, making alliances, scouting places of interest, and improving their skills through practice. All for those events Momo was talking about earlier. He's going to need to look more into this Treasures Wars. For now, he needs more information about the girls. He already SCD together as much information as he could about them with the resources he had. Their elitist status was useful to figure out their strengths and expertise. Combine that with what he knows they usually dealt with, it was easy creating a plan with Eri that'll go around their realm of expectations for a quick win. Now it won't be as easy. He expected to come across a voting situation eventually, but he always thought he could take advantage of Momo's modesty and Setsuna's unscrupulous nature to outnumber Saiko's bourgeois-centric prejudice views. Something to help him in the power balance of the club so he can't get shut out in case the girls still don't fully accept him at the time. Now with this, it doesn't matter if he goes as far as somehow making the two girls go completely against Saiko. He's still going to need the Lavender's vote, meaning no matter what, he can't get around facing all three of them in a game. This time, a simple parlor trick like he did the first time won't work, which is why he's going to need to learn more about them if he's going to face their might. You sure it's smart to be spying on them like this? Harry asked. Yeah, why? Izuku answered, continuing to scout the area. It just seems like a problem waiting to happen. Like what? Cornered in one of the alleys of the school, Izuku with Uri on his back faced against a group of 30 men. They were all stereotypically looking like delinquents. This, Uri says, sighing as she knew this was going to be annoying to deal with. Can I game them all away? No, Izuku exclaimed, standing firm in the face of this antagonizing force. I can do it. I just wish I didn't have to use so much of my arsenal this early after entering. With a sigh, Izuku got his game face ready before addressing the crowd. Fellas, how about we settle this issue with a... Excuse me, coming through, a feminine voice called out. It had a familiar I'm superior to you tone to it, Izuku recognized. Making their way through the delinquents were the killer queens themselves. Their presence commanded such respect that the crowd split themselves to create a pathway for them. With Saiko taking the lead with her posh stride that carried the weight of her humongous pride, Momo was close behind who ushered herself along in a way that showed off her elegance and humility, and bringing up the rear was Setsuna, who almost looked at home among the crowd with how she walked with such swagger. Once they were in the front, they quickly turned their backs to the cornered boy, confronting the group. The lavender-haired girl seemed to have taken the role as spokesperson, pulling out a red and golden designed fan hand. Striking a pose, Saiko threw her hand out toward them as if she was about to announce something, but then nothing happened. Instead, she turned back and looked at Izuku, giving him a steely look before gesturing for him to back up some more. You're not giving us enough space to properly show ourselves, Saiko tells him. Izuku was about to speak, but considering the situation, he'd rather just see what happens. Rolling his eyes, he stepped back despite nearly being against the literal wall. Uri crawled closer to Izuku's head to get better at his face before mouthing the words she said before about the girls. Preppy B. Of course, like a good guardian, Izuku stopped her by tapping her forehead with a finger, causing her to hang back, rubbing her head as she gave him an annoyed pout. It only worked to make Izuku smile seeing her try to look mad. Continuing where she left off, Saiko said, Halt. Now, explain to me what the hell do you think you're doing? One of the guys in the front goes to explain to her. This guy was stalking around the school. We heard a rumor about some rat who somehow managed to scurry his way into the school and now wants to dig into your club. We overheard him in a tree talking about spying to get information on you guys. Saiko looked back at Setsuna, who proudly gave her another toothy smile that said told ya. The delinquents then reached a hand out in Izuku's direction as he continued to say, Of course, someone like that doesn't deserve to wriggle his way by, so we'll take care of him promptly. No, Saiko states, slapping the ruffian's hand down with her fan. She didn't want to dirty her glove by touching him. She didn't stop there, she repeated her words, again and again, each time she jabbed the tip of the fan into the delinquent's chest. No, 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 no. The force repetitively made the man stumble back as Saiko stepped forward. Despite being smaller than them, her demeanor pushed back the entire group. After displaying her control, she slapped the folded-up fan against the palm of her other hand before stating, He is under the jurisdiction of the Killer Queens. He challenged us. If anyone is going to deal with him, it's us and us alone. Mind your own business, we don't need third-rate players to handle our problems. The crowd seemed to have taken offense to her comment. You're calling us third-rate? Saiko looked confused as she said, Yes. Did I stutter? She looked back to her friends and repeated the question. They assured her they didn't. Turning back she continued, Okay, I didn't stutter. So you all must need hearing aids. We don't need hearing aids. How dare you call us third-rate players? Honestly, I was being generous to calling you all third-rate considering the fact that you managed to get into this school. It doesn't matter what you consider yourself anyways, as far as I'm concerned, you're all just a bunch of raging dogs, Saiko tells him, gesturing them to go away with a flimsy wave of her hand. Now, shoo. For obvious reasons, this didn't settle well with the group of delinquents getting talked down to, you know what? I'm tired of you preppy beaches thinking you're hot SHD. As the group gave their dynamic speech about how they're good players as well, the girl already tuned them out. Momo sighed, here we go again. 27, 28, 29. There's 30 of them, so that's 10 of each, Setsuna called out after counting them all. Man, this year only got a bunch of lightweights. At least last year the fodder can properly stack up their numbers. It's still a bit early to rate the quality of this year. Maybe more smart players took a more humble route. Ah, that SCK. Oh wait, that means it'll be more fun messing with those people since I have to put more effort. Saiko butt in, either way, what'll be their punishment for losing? These peasants are so lowly, they're not worth putting under us or taking whatever they have. How about we make them pay for all our meals for the month? Setsuna suggested. You think they can afford it? My exquisite meals will drain whatever chump change they have within the first week, and I won't settle for being served cheap food. How about we make them fix or build whatever we want when we need it? I know we've been planning to construct something for the treasure wars, suggested Momo. I'll rather recruit monkeys, Saiko states. I got it. Going back to the group, Saiko announced their prize to them. When you all lose, a sadistic smile appeared on her face as she stuck out one of her legs to show off her white boots. With a slow lick of her lips she said, you have to lick the tip of my boot, like the pack of dogs you are. Like hell, we will. If we win then. Yeah, let's just get to it. It taking this long annoys me, so we'll have no mercy here and we'll use our cheats. Game set. Each of the girls handled their group with a game of their choosing. Momo opted for a tabletop game similar to D&D, Saiko chose an interesting card game, and Setsuna went with a simple pick the correct X game. As the games went on, Izuku felt a pull on him and asked, what's a cheat? Oh right, you probably know it by a different name, Izuku says. Most people in this world have something called a quirk, which is a specialized mutation that gives the user a certain personal ability. But, when that quirk ability manifested in the game, it may change to accommodate for the kind of game being played. Since they usually can change the rules or allow moves that usually aren't allowed, they're called cheats. Oh, I know what those are. I knew you would. The group was getting devastated by the girls. Over with Setsuna, she shuffled her equipment too swiftly in too many bizarre ways that no one could keep track of what they were supposed to. Momo's tactics allowed her to steamroll her opponent's army. There was barely any resistance that even slowed her down. Finally, with Saiko and her card game, almost every move the opponent made was followed with her saying, you just activated my trap card. It was like a slaughter, almost painful to watch. This is taking too long. Hey, Momo, start taking two at a time. Don't want to spend all day here, Setsuna called out. Understood, Momo replied, gesturing for more to come. Please step forward. I'll make this go quickly. What? Saiko exclaimed, feeling left out. If that's the case then I'll take 3 at a time. Okay, Setsuna responded. I'll just do 4 at a time. Then I'll do 5, 6, 7. Momo stepped in. Guys, remember we have actual opponents to face. She's right, Saiko says. Let us take all our remaining opponents on at once and see who can finish theirs first. Izuku felt pity for the delinquents despite their rudeness to him. Game over. Oh. With Seiko's maniacal laugh as their fallen foes formed a well-moving line to lick her boot. She wasn't kidding. Momo and Setsuna on the other hand were conversing with Izuku. You forgot to take this, Momo says, handing them a golden badge in the shape of a crown with 4 points at the top of it. It's our club's emblem. You're going to need it. Welcome to the club, Setsuna tells him, stretching her arms to get all the cramps out. Izuku accepted the emblem and said, thank you for this and for helping with those guys. We were in a bind there. Don't get so confident. Saiko called out, still getting her boots lick. You're a 4th-rate player whose tricks might sometimes break 2nd-rate. We just don't like others getting involved in our business. We're going to pay you back for the humiliation you caused us. She means, we await your challenge to us for club president, Momo explained. We'll be going all out, so you better not disappoint us, Setsuna added, resting an arm against Momo's shoulder. Another large smile, similar to the one he had when he faced off against Nezu, appeared on Izuku's face. I'll do my best. I won't hold back on my tactics. You better, Saiko exclaimed, walking out after finally being finished with humiliating those poor souls. With our cheats, you better be willing to do whatever you can. Izuku's eyes wandering across the 3 girls in front of him. Their smarts being their strength has shown to be extremely deadly. This won't be easy, but what's the point of playing a game with no challenge? The Killer Queens, a small group of remarkable women who quickly made a name for themselves with their phenomenal performance at last year's regionals. Despite being a club composed of less than a handful of members, with nothing but their smarts, strategy, and abilities, were about to create a fortress formation that couldn't be penetrated on any side. They're one of the clubs most anticipated to challenge the top 4 clubs of the school at the Treasure Wars and get sent to regionals again. Now a young man for the sake of his sister has to challenge each of these monstrous threats. Will he prevail or will he be dominated by the queens and forced to bow? We shall find out as he searches for the exploitable areas he can strike at. But his search so far has been for naught. Yuri, I get it, Izuku stated, lifting his eyes from his stack of papers to look at the little white-haired child. Thanks for assisting my research, but you don't have to tell me every bit you find out like you're narrating a story. You know I have to, it makes it more immersive and thus palatable, Yuri replied, hopping her way on top of the picnic table they were sitting at on school grounds. She propped her tiny fists onto her hips and struck a valiant pose before declaring in a slightly more upbeat tone than her usual monotone voice, because reading is boring. You won't even play a game unless you've read literally every game manual of it you can get your hands on. Those two don't correlate, utterly different contexts. I bet. Get your boots off the table, you little adorable hypocrite. It's rude, Izuku tells her, gently picking her up by the underarms. But it makes me feel big, she whined, pouting from being so easily dethroned. Well, you're small for now. We all have to pay our dues and now it's your time, Izuku replied, setting her down on the table's chair. Now back to work. Was that all you can find on them? Eri gave a few affirmative nods. Exhaling in distress, Izuku groaned. So we're just retreading the same information over and over again. The young child's eyes dropped a bit after hearing this. With the tiniest indication of looking disappointed, she said, So, my data wasn't helpful this time. No. Hearing her sound more solemn than before made Izuku quickly snap his attention toward his little companion, rushing to assure her by petting her head and saying, It's not that it wasn't helpful, it's just that I know already that the girls are amazing. Right now I'm just looking for something more akin to how they play. Okay, I'll keep looking then, she said, sitting back down to search for more. Why yeah, you do that. Izuku didn't have the heart to tell her that there's nothing she can do. The issue is there's barely any recording online of them gaming. The school is extremely high on security and making sure no games played on campus can be recorded by others. When he checked their record during the regional, only their entrance matches were shown, which was them dominating their matches against well-experienced players. While he could look up others' thoughts on a player, he knew better that it wouldn't hold up until you actually start playing against them. While gathering intel on what your opponent's quirk is and how they usually convert it into a cheat is extremely useful, it all comes down to how you play the game. He already used his general rabbit punch tactic on the girls once to get in, and now they'll be expecting it while taking their next game seriously. Cheap brand tricks will be a fool's errand to go with. He has to make it personalized. He mumbles to himself, How am I going to defeat such a dexterous woman? I can help, said Setsuna, popping in right next to him. Izuku shouted, nearly jumping out of his seat. Mimicked Setsuna. Why are you yelling? I don't know, shrugged the sharp-toothed girl. Thought you'll feel more comfortable if supposedly we're both freaked out. Confusion filled Izuku's face as he stared at her before asking, Why are you here? Because of what you're doing, Setsuna told him, seating herself down on the table the boy was working on. She eyes the papers that were scattered across the wooden surface. I see you're checking us out. Smart choice. That'll make you at least fun for us to squashed. Izuku jumped over his notes to cover him with his body, with Eri doing the same behind him, unified as they shot the greenette intimidating glares. Izuku told her, So what if we're analyzing you and your friends? What, you want to see how much we know? Well, we can't let you know how much we know or else it'll become too difficult to take advantage of what you think we know than what we actually know. Setsuna raised her eyebrow at him, stating, First off, if you wanted to be so secretive about gathering intel on the killer queens, why did you set your little research table out in the open in the school we reside in? The one place we'll most likely pass by right next to our own club room. Immediately did Izuku raise a finger in objection, with Eri supporting him. But he didn't say anything. His voice has fallen silent when facts and logic hit him. How the hell did this guy get into the school and outplay the main group of the queens? Pondered Setsuna, questioning if the boy she found so intriguing was as smart as she thought he was or was just a broken clock that got the time right twice a day. Second off, I didn't come here to spy for the group. She leans closer to the two of them so she could whisper, I came to help you. What? Exclaimed Izuku, shifting away as his eyes glared at her with suspicion. Why do you want to help me? I'm going against your friends. Okay, you're destroying the point of me whispering it. Sorry, the boy told her, rubbing the back of his head for the outburst. He might have just thrown away the element of surprise if her proposition was fruitful and honest. Also, Setsuna continued, drawing the conversation back on track. Her curvy figure leaned even closer toward only Izuku this time, giving him a bright display of her upper half accompanied by her signature sharp devious smiles. You're the kind of guy I like. Izuku paused for a moment hearing this, only being able to give a short squeakiest response, Eri defensively jumped on her brother's lap, aiming to put distance to him and this witch that came out of nowhere saying weird things. Silent but trying one's best to be intimidating, she glared daggers into this possible threat to her caretaker, not liking the possibility of someone else coming into their lives and changing their dynamics. What? From what I watched, I already deem you as someone who will always shake up society with your presence, and break the common practice because you don't follow the standard laid out. People like that are the most fun to be with because when you're by their side you're right there when they send the pillar of stagnation crumbling down. And what follows is a whole bunch of opportunities to take advantage of, the greenette explained in great detail. This was something she's been looking forward to for a long while. With a friendly smile but an ominous aura, she held out an inviting hand. Long story short, I like the cut of your gif and want you two to stay around for longer. How about we team up? Izuku pondered through a waterfall of quandaries to himself of her proposition as he stared down the offering hand. Without a quirk of his own to form a proper cheat, he's going to need as much help as possible, especially if he plans on winning against the killer queens. The only issue is that the help being offered is from a queen. No fancy words can ever change that they just met less than a week ago and he's a new member. It'll never be this easy. Okay, what do you really want? Izuku asked her, sporting a smirk that showed he was unfazed by her facade. Let me guess, once I become class president you want a rule change you probably couldn't get beforehand. The smile on the girl's face turned more humorous than the forcefully friendly it was before, yet her right eye still twitched a bit. She backed away from the hawk-eyed boy who spotted the nepotism deal before it got in too deep, much to the pleasure of Eri, who didn't want her close anyways, who only saw the queens as divas. Giggling, the sharp-toothed player threw up her hands in surrender. "All right, you got me," she tells him, rearranging her posture by crossing her slender legs to sit more comfortably. "There's this stupid rule we have where only the club president is allowed to use the MSDR key that can be used to access our club's inventory, which usually contains the club's most important assets. Since Saiko is written down as the founder, she gets the keys until we elect one, which will most likely be her reclaiming her role from last year. She already got most of the members to favor her. If I help you become club president, you have to change it so others can use the key. I'm sick of asking stingy all Saiko permission every time I want to get something from our storage unit." Izuku's facial expression scrunched up to look befuddled, asking her, "That's all?" "Yeah, why? Sounds kinda petty for that to be a reason to betray your friends," Eri commented, "Divas. Oh please, you're acting like I'm doing something horrendous to my clubmates. As long as you can recover as if nothing really happened and there was no malice, then you shouldn't sweat even remembering it happened," Setsuna responded, waving off the pair's judgment of her intentions. "Besides, you know how monotonous it is asking Saiko for everything like that. She asks you a billion questions even though she'll be the one who originally ordered you do something that required the key in the first place, and then judge you for it. She won't even give me the key, she's too proprietary that she'll walk down with you to open it herself, and lock it afterward. I have responsibilities they make me do. You know how annoying it is to get up early in the morning to prepare something for the club, only to realize you can't get into the storage unit because you don't have the key. Then you have to go all the way upstairs just to deal with, oh why do you want it, as if we didn't just discuss it yesterday. And then go all the way back downstairs just to be nagged to hurry up, as if she's not the one insistent that she come along instead of just giving me the DMN key to do it at my own pace." Slowly but gradually it seemed as though Setsuna shifted her focus more toward ranting than anything else. "And Momo doesn't want to say anything because they're friends and keep giving me that, oh she can be difficult at times. Just try to find a way to get around it like you think it's easy when you're forced to interact with her every time you want to do your job. Then that tailored girl has the nerve to FC King say I'm being difficult by always bringing up that slippery prank like it was the worst thing in the world because someone got suspended over it. When all I want to do is get out the DMN file papers so we can reserve pool time because I'm sick of dealing with their complaints about boys looking at them. But then will start nagging me about going there too often every time I want to go by myself instead of training. But no, that's considered too selfish for my position while they can miss club time FC King around at their house, and I don't get to." The girl suddenly stopped when she finally realized how off-topic she had gotten and why it wasn't going to make the best first impression on the person she's trying to acquaint with. Chuckling a bit nervously, she tried to play it off by saying, "Whoops, let my tongue run free for a bit too long. Anyways, long story short, you changing stuff will make my life a lot less stressful." Her upturned eyes then wandered down to the little girl who still was menacingly glaring at her. The greenette's smile grew brighter looking at her, saying, "Also, it wouldn't hurt keeping the little one around." Bluntly, Eri tells her, "I don't trust you." Without warning, the hands of Setsuna detached themselves from her arm and floated down to pick up the small kid, bringing Eri high up and tossing her repeatedly like a parent entertaining a baby. "What are you doing? What are you doing? Ah-hhh." The entire time Eri uncharacteristically yelled, first in terror but then in something somewhat resembling a child's cry on a roller coaster. Almost as quickly as Setsuna picked her up, she set Eri back down on Izuku's lap. After a bit of silence, the white-haired hare looked at her caretaker and said, "I think we can trust her. For now." Izuku smirked down at Eri, saying, "That was quick. I just think she has something valuable to give us." "Yeah, someone to give you a piggyback ride is precious," Izuku softly chuckled, petting her head raggedy on purpose to annoy her. Despite her swallow reasoning, she did have a point. He has only a week and limited resources to confront the queens in a serious match. From her demeanor among the group, she does seem to be the type that knows of all their weaknesses. The only issue being, should he trust her? She is a snake, and like all snakes, they're extremely self-servicing. To hell with it, Izuku thought. Won't be the first time I've danced a dangerous line with a beast. Regardless, you got yourself a deal, he says. Setsuna once again held out her hand, which Izuku accepted with a handshake, sealing their agreement. "Excellent," stated Setsuna, her smile growing again. "Let's get to work. I've got a bunch to tell you." Izuku returned her smile with his own, with Eri getting out fresh scrap paper to write on. The boy propped his hand against his face as he said, "We'll be glad to hear it." "Oh," said a surprised Momo. She was speaking on the phone while looking at the grandfather clock in her room. "You've decided to issue me as your first challenge." "Yeah, sorry about this," said Izuku's voice from the phone. "I know it's kinda late for you. You've probably slipped into your nightgown by now." "It's fine, it's not that late for me to head for bed." "Wait, how old do you think I am to sleep at this hour?" "I don't know, seeing how elegantly proper you are. I just always saw you as one of those girls who wear those old-time England nightgowns who are in bed by 9. That's not the kind of woman I am. I'm refined, not Amish," Momo declared, gripping her phone with both hands. Her cheeks were getting a bit flustered hearing this outlandish assumption about her character. "Well then, what are you wearing right now?" Izuku asked her, despite being sent through a speaker, his voice turning into a more silvery one. Still struck the raven-haired girl. Almost dropping her phone when her body jolted, a blushing Momo quickly stammered. What I decide to wear at night is not your concern. I ask you to please respect the privacy of my clothing choices. Alright then, keep your secrets, Izuku nonchalantly tells her, with a soft chuckle trailing off the sentence. He must be pleased with himself asking such bold things, Momo thought, frowning at the entertainment this boy got from her reaction. With bitterness in her voice, she impatiently asked him, is that all you needed from me tonight? On the other side of the line, Izuku had to hold back his laughter to not tread the line of actually PSS her off. But the tiny groan at the tail end of her question from irritation was adorable. It was like seeing a docile bunny try to be moody. It only makes them seem cuter. After calming himself, he says, yes, that was all. Then I will calmly take my leave, Momo tells him, Kami going to end the call. Oh, remember Momo, Izuku exclaimed, our match is at sunrise. I remember, you want us to meet beforehand if I'm correct. Yeah, I'll be sure to get permission and we'll be there on time. I wanted to get up early anyway to check on some things. Perfect. Can't wait to meet tomorrow. See ya, Ponytail. Goodbye, Em. Hold on. Pluck, beep. He hung up on her. Sighing, she went back to her chair to continue reading the novel she was invested in before the phone call. Though the deeper she got into the novel, it only served to make one thing Izuku said stick out to her. Did he call me Ponytail? Shaking her head, she pushed out the unnecessary thoughts. It's trivial at this point. Tomorrow at sunset, I'll fulfill my duty as the club's second in command, and will humble our new member about respect. You're here early, Izuku stated, smiling at the raven-haired girl as she approached him. He decided to have them meet behind the school where some of the trees were left to grow out. A clear area, perfect for a game, and perfect for a plan. Well, of course, it's only courteous that I arrive on time to a challenge. Wouldn't want to stain our club's good integrity, Momo calmly replied. Her uniform was well arranged, and her graceful posture as she waltzed was still being kept up despite it being so early in the day. Though I can ask something similar to you. Didn't expect you to arrive for a little while longer, but here you are. Guess we both wanted to leave good impressions on each other. I'm battling against a killer queen after all. Can't let myself be dragged down by drowsiness. Quite glad to see you're taking this seriously, Midoriya. You'll need to be at your best. There's no doubt in my mind of that just from seeing you. So early yet you're looking as primed to fight as ever. Izuku knew of many people, Eri included, who will look like a mess if they had to get up before 7 a.m. Yet here was this snazzy lady, looking fresher than a newly picked apple when getting up before the sun does. It almost baffled Izuku when she said, unfortunately, I'm not shameless. I couldn't shake off all the effects. Apologies in advance for my voice being a bit dozy this morning. The tiny yawn she does once in a few sentences was barely noticeable, yet she's apologetic over it. Setsuna was right about her modesty. It's fine, my appearance isn't that clean either, he assures her. His clothing has been scoffed a bit as he's been running around for the last couple of minutes. Momo nodded. Unlike Saiko, she didn't mind Izuku's informal appearance. She has met with various people of all kinds of backgrounds and knows better than to judge completely over appearance. He already proved himself to be an interesting player if anything. As long as he meets the required dress code for the area, she didn't care. Though Izuku did have one thing that stood out to her. She wasn't sure what it was, but her nose picked up a small whiff of a weird smell. She didn't comment on it as not to be rude. It wasn't like it bothered her, it just piqued her senses. It wasn't the time to think about it anyways. She was here on business and asked, since we're both currently present, do you want to start our match now? Sorry, you mind still waiting till sunrise? I wanted to construct something first for our game, Izuku told her, nudging his head toward what looked like a partially constructed stage. I'm nearly finished, it shouldn't be that much longer. I was already prepared for that anyway. Do as you wish, she said, elegantly strolling over to the corner where one of the trees was with the book she brought with her. Within the dark sky atmosphere, her simple walk seemed like a dazzling waltz under the radiant moonlight. I'll be reading by that tree over there. Call me when you need anything. Comfortably settling herself down against the trunk of a tree, Momo continued where she left off in her novel. Thankfully, the background noises didn't distract her and she was able to mostly focus on the printed pages in front of her. She would look up every so often to check on the boy, while she already examined all the equipment he brought out and saw nothing suspicious. She needed to keep an eye on him before he sneaks in a hidden trapdoor or something outlandish to give him the advantage. So far, everything seemed normal. Hey Momo, Izuku called out to her, if you don't mind me asking, what's with the no children rule in the club? It's not a no children rule, Momo answered him, not looking up from her book. More so it's a rule against guests in general. We had a issue last year with relatives coming in, so we voted and the majority decided that unless it's something important to the club, no guests can stay for long. Quick stop by are allowed unless they start disturbing club activities. Who was it? Who was the one who ruined it for everyone? I rather not disclose that information. Come on, it wouldn't hurt. I'm curious about who had the embarrassing family. Was it you? No, I'm an only child. Momo yelled, putting down her book for a second. The idea of her parenting acting in such a manner was reality-breaking to think about. While proud and supportive, my parents weren't people who would want to distract me from my important activities here and don't visit me during them. Ah, makes sense. What does that mean? I kinda assumed a club as small in member as you guys would have a rule like that unless most of you girls weren't single children. Of course, minus the one who caused it. Actually, I'm the only member in the club who's the only child. Everyone else has siblings. Ah, that SCK, I know how it feels being left out as the only one in a friends group that didn't have siblings. What about your little sister? You two seemed close enough that you're trying to become club president just to let her be around. Eri is technically adopted. Granted, we care for each other greatly like any other sibling you'll find around, but we've only known each other for less than a few years. Though I guess from how much she clings to me you'll make that misunderstanding. Which reminds me, where's your little sister? Not going to lie, I expected to see her hugging your back again. Ha, I wish I can get her up at this hour, laughed Izuku, humoring himself with the mental image of Eri whining and thrashing around to not be dragged out of the warm comfort of her bed. The most troublesome thing about her is how she'll never go to bed when you want her to, but then when she does, not even a giant meteor coming crashing onto the earth would wake her. Granted, she would be dead, along with everyone else on earth, but during those few minutes of utter panic she'll be sleeping like a baby. Thought it'll be better to let her sleep. The eyes of the raven-haired girl dropped as she sighed. Oh, what? And nothing, it was just. I wouldn't mind her being here to watch. You sure? Thought you'll be happy that you wouldn't need to worry about a distraction for such an important game. Yeah, but she didn't look like one of those children that'll be rowdy. I was fine with the guest, but our official decree was decided and I intend on upholding it. You sound like one of those cops from those really cheesy ancient films. Rude, Momo shouted, throwing down her hands. She scowled her face at him for irking her with his mean-spirited comment. I may be strict on abiding the rules, but it's for the good of the club. Must do my duty to maintain the integrity of the law or else society. And our club will collapse, Izuku jokingly mocked. Stop it. It's true and I don't sound like that. Yelled Momo, her cheeks were getting red again. Last time I lightened up on one of our members, a slippery prank happened and so many people got suspended over it. It was a nightmare to deal with and I don't care what I sound like if I can prevent that again. It must be done, for the good of the people, continued Izuku, dramatically clutching his fist, displaying his formidable acting skills. No, not like that, Momo exclaimed, this time getting more humorous from his exaggerated performance, and fought to hold back the smile begging to release on her face. You won't understand unless you're in my position. Biwahaha, burst the young woman, unable to hold back her laughter. It was too ridiculous soap opera to not find funny. Momo softly placed a hand over her mouth, regulating herself down to a joyous giggle. Oh my god, how can you say that with such a serious face? It felt someone trying to reenact a scene from a script in real life. Is that a bad thing? A smirking Izuku asked her, finished playing around and went back to work. I've heard my acting skills can be quite commendable. Settling herself back down, Momo replied, no, not at all. You did pretty well. If I didn't know better I would have believed you were serious. If you're a fan of acting or plays, I have a friend who acts at the local theater who is always giving me free tickets to their performances. I usually go with Saiko, but I can't always go with her as she can be busy or, well, she's being to herself. I can take you there to enjoy a showing. Haha, that's awfully nice for you to do for a newbie like me. You sure you want to start introducing me to your connections before I earn my stripes in the club yet? Despite your underhanded methods of getting in the club, you are a killer queen now, and I care for all our members the same. Momo gestured her fingers in the air as she went on an explanation. We're like a group of small but valuable kingdoms, allied together to stand against the rest of the world. Despite our differences, we should always support each other and keep our disputes in the club, or else we can easily fall to our surrounding enemies. So any issues involving you are for us and us alone to deal with, or as Saiko said, you're ours now. Oh my, and not like that. Whatever you say, Izuku tauntingly replied, smirking to himself, please treat me well. Snap. Oh, Izuku abruptly said. Momo tilted her head hearing this sequence, putting down her book again to ask, what's wrong? One of those special screws broke and I don't think I got another one. Which kind was it? It's the you drive screw. Alright, come over, I can make it, Momo told him. She closed her eyes and concentrated on what she wanted to craft. With your quirk? Izuku asked. He gave himself a secret small smile before turning toward her. You show such interest in our club as if you already know of our prestige. I assume you've already taken the liberty of researching the basic concept of all our quirks. Haha, yeah. Yours allows you to create nearly anything, right? Yes, that's right. There are more complications to it, but that sums it up, she explained, displaying this party with a spectacular light show sparking in the palm of her hand as the screw slowly forms. There we go, please be careful. It's rather early in the day and I don't want to get my QBA too high. QBA. You don't know what that is. Izuku shook his head. Oh right, you're quirkless. QBA, it stands for Quirk Biorhythm Activity. It's a measurement the government uses to monitor our quirk usage outside of games. Every time we use our quirks, it causes our QBA to go up, get too high, and the multiple sensors placed in the city will alarm the authorities of your location, and you could get arrested. That's a thing, Izuku exclaimed, but what about games? I never once heard of this where I'm from. Since cheats are just our quirks manifested into whatever game we play, they don't raise. You probably haven't heard of it. This is a new system implemented only a few years ago and mostly been focused on big important cities. Not only that, but every place that does have them has different regulations and how high your QBA. Your home city either didn't have them or their tolerance was extremely high, so it never became a big enough occasion to be known, Momo explained. No way would my hometown be able to maintain those. Huh, interesting, Izuku muttered, going over to Momo. He closed the distance between their bodies, leaving only a small space between them. He accepted the screw, with his fingertips only slightly grazing off the skin of the raven-haired girl's palm, tickling her. Thanks, Momo. No problem, Izuku. Is something the matter? And no, it's fine, she shuddered, using her open book to mask her face, leaving only her eyes visible. Don't mind me, something just came to mind. Oh okay, I'm almost done, so it shouldn't be that long. Momo couldn't form words, only giving a money sound response, MHM. She sighed when Izuku finally left her and was out of earshot. Once again, that peculiar scent emanated from the young boy, this time stronger than the last time. Momo couldn't believe just it alone made her gasp like that mid-sentence. She just felt her whole body jolt suddenly. Her heartbeat spiked to an abnormal rate and her body felt like it was on fire. If it wasn't for Momo covering her nose with her book, she wasn't sure what would have happened next. It wasn't as if she found it revolting or anything. It was just a smell after all. She took a deep breath, steadily regaining her composure and sense of comeback, but her reading speed had dropped when she went back to reading. All right, stage is finished, Izuku happily declared, wiping his forehead, and the sun has only started to poke its head up to lighten our sky. Hearing this, Momo closed the book and raised herself from the ground. Taking another deep breath, she drew a smile as she said, Wonderful, shall we begin? It was just a regular stage after all, built with durable wood, and had great structure. They had to sit on the floor, but it beat sitting in the dirt for a game. Like any challenge, Momo wore her nice clothes, so any option for her to avoid dirtying them would be preferable. With a square table between them, Momo states, we'll be playing Draco Velator. Izuku nonchalantly shrugged, that's fine by me. Draco Velator was a game that derived inspiration from the long-time legendary game known as D&D, where each player controls a small army unit that they can personally customize each unit to be any class. Depending on the player agreement, the size of each army may vary. They are going by the average of 20 units per player. The actual goal of the game can be either of the main three. Route, where the game doesn't end until one player's team is annihilated. Seize the throne, where each player has to protect a certain part of their map from being captured from their enemy. Finally, kill the king, where each player selects a unit to be classified as king, which gets a special bonus, but if they die, the match ends. As agreed beforehand, we'll be playing with no special rules, Momo states, striking a serious position as she prepares herself. The goal is, seize the throne. First claim the other's throne wins. If you win, I'll loyally cast my vote for you as club president. If I win, having trouble? Izuku asked, raising an eyebrow. We already talked about the conditions beforehand. I request a change of what happens if I win. Oh, what kind of change? You know I can't let things like that slide so easily. It won't be bad, I promise. Carry on. If I win, then you must commit your membership in the club to be our steward. Steward, Izuku repeated. His eyes wandered a bit as he said, quite a lighter sentence than before. Now you want me as your servant. Momo held a hand to her chest as she told him, steward is a more refined position name. It's not like we're going to make you spend all day mopping the floor of the hall. Since a lot of us are busy with school and I can't do everything for the club, a lot of our more organizational tasks tend to be roughly split between all of us, which can cause us to be catty. I technically haven't witnessed it once, but I can already imagine it with those two, Izuku thought. His mind instantly thought about Setsuna and Saiko going at it with each other. It'll make things a lot easier if we have a designated person who'll do the other half with me, Momo continued. She then gave him a kind smile. Also, it'll allow you to try again for my vote if you lose. That's awfully kind of you. Is this some kind of special treatment I'm getting? I've said it before. Us queens treat each well. Most of the time. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing your sister more often. On that note, can we please change the name? I don't think I can ever get used to being called a queen. That statement drew a chuckle from the girl. PFFFT, no. We're keeping the name. Izuku playfully let out a grunt. Arg. That's another thing this school has that irk me. Right next to that must have over half the current club members vote rule. If it wasn't for that, I would only have to get 2 of your votes. From how I see it, it only makes things more difficult. Principal Nezu purposely put it in place for that reason. Reasons like that is why we shouldn't let cute animals run schools. This time Momo chuckled some of her words. He actually has a good reason for it. Remember, this school is all about raising the best players to play games on not just the regional level, but the national and world level. He claims he makes these rules to prepare for such difficult playing levels by making almost every aspect in the school be played like a game on strong mode. That way people will be forced into situations they aren't used to and have to up their antics to achieve their goals. To him, that means the club president of each club had to be someone who can gain enough respect or strategize enough to make over half the club indebted to him or follow him. You're certainly knowledgeable about this, Izuku said, resting against the palm of his hand as he gives her an intrigued glare. I expected such comprehension from you. It's really nothing special, Momo replied, brushing the large strand of her hair. A lot of this and more was explained during the beginning of the school year. If you were here you would have gotten it. Guess I missed out on a lot, Izuku says, smirking at her. You do seem to be the most responsible among the club with information. Let's meet alone again later, then you can catch me up with everything you know, and I can learn everything about you. What does he mean by that? Momo thought, her body stiffened at his words and her breathing became abrupt again. She shook her head, clearing her mind before she thought too much into it and told him, we can discuss such tea things later, we're in the middle of a game. Do you accept these conditions? Sure, Izuku answered, not taking his eyes off of her. Let's have fun, Yaoyorozu. Just Momo is fine, the girl muttered. Whatever you wish. Game set. Izuku vs Momo 20/20. With a dazzling light, the board manifested between them and their pieces spawned. As Setsuna told him, Momo usually chooses a very unconventional lineup, something overly complicated to manage for most elite players, but if one can keep track of everything then they may have one of the most broken setups at the game. It's still a little ways off, I'm going to have to play defensively till then. Izuku thought, moving to perform the first move. Start. Are you okay, Izuku? Momo asked him. With a strong face she seemed to be more confident in the matter, sporting a smile. A cold sweat dripped down the side of Izuku's face, still returning the smile as he responded. Doing great, thanks for being concerned for me. Wonderful, she sweetly says, then please, make your move. In a minute, he nonchalantly replied. He manages to stay collective but the current situation of the game was pressuring. Izuku vs Momo 7/17. Holy CRP, I knew this game was one of her favorites but it barely began and she already got me by the edge. It's a crazy plan, Setsuna told Izuku, stretching her arms to release their tension. Packing up their things, Izuku carefully moved the equipment away from Eri who had fallen asleep midway through. Looks like staying up all night finally caught up with her. Crazy plans are how I'm still alive right now, Izuku chuckled. As long as enough things go my way and I have a chance, I'll make things work out in my favor. You do know who you're facing, right? Setsuna asked, raising an eyebrow at him. While she adores the confidence, she didn't want a good plan to go to waste over relying on some devil's luck. Aren't you here to explain that? Izuku snapped back. Oh ho, she exclaimed. Shhh, shushed Izuku, pointing to the sleeping child. Setsuna innocently raises her hands, giving him a moment of silence. She then states, Momo Yaoyorozu, the one who excels in everything she touches. The modest queen, Momo the polymath. It's said that there's not a single pro game she doesn't excel at. Is that true? Izuku asked her, knowing how easily rumors can be greatly exaggerated or entirely made up. Well, let me just say this. I always try to get an advantage on others by making them play games they're not unfamiliar with or don't play often enough to get every rule and strategy. I've even won over Momo a few times for she's not infallible. However, never once was it because she played a game that felt foreign to her. I already knew of that and yet it still gives me shivers. It really wasn't a rumor. Trust me, I've tried. Even pros can only be prolific at so many games or will have quirks that'll greatly manifest into useful cheats in every game. You better hope this plan of yours works or else you're going to get a beatdown so bad you might cry. Haha. Calmly Izuku carefully picked up his sleeping sister, telling the sharp-toothed girl, as long as what you told me was true, I'll make it work. So your concern should be something else. You better hope you told the truth because I don't like getting lied to. That tone, it wasn't one that was meant to be just for show. It was real and it made Setsuna smile with giddy seeing it, as there's only one place in the world you had to go through to get it. Saying, don't worry, if any of the information I told you is false, you're allowed to make me do anything to make it up. Hey, haha. Izuku burst out laughing, having to cover his mouth to not wake his sister. Oh, what dark dirty thought came to that secretive mind of yours? Sadly my mind can't so freely wonder about such things so often. I was just thinking about what excellent teammates I now have. Almost all of Izuku's flying units were killed, his front line was smashed within the first turn, and most of his battle special units got wiped out before he could make much use of them. A lot of it was because of Momo's excellent tactic and positioning, as well as Izuku playing defensively to waste time, but also that useful quirk of hers. The cheat that was manifested was one where once per turn, Momo can grant one of her units any generic weapon in the game, theoretically turning any one of her units into a potential Swiss Army knife that can handle any situation. I made the right choice of choosing this club. Izuku thought, he hit the goldmine on this one. But, like most gold mines, actually obtaining it wasn't going to be easy. That was fine, the struggle was nothing new to him, and it was about time to kick things off anyways. As Izuku conducted his turn, he said, I must say, you certainly are pushing me into the corner. If I'm not careful I might lose. Momo without a word made her move, taking out another of Izuku's unit. Izuku versus Momo 6/17. Gah, you got another one, Izuku jokes. Alright, no more playing around. I'm going to win this. Such a statement would make anyone giggle from the silliness. Momo was no different, but she as kindly turned away as to not seem rude. She said, you're an interesting person to talk with, but it is your turn, Izuku. Though with my setup, you're at an extreme disadvantage. I think it might be best to surrender and come back, Ag. Momo was in for a surprise when she looked back. Without any warning, Izuku was suddenly lifting off his shirt, revealing more of his pale skin and toned muscles that were hidden underneath. Immediately blushing, she jumped back exclaiming, GAH, WW, what are you doing? It was getting hot out here, Izuku casually answers, continuing to strip off his top. Can't think if I'm sizzling like this. His movements slow, building up to a rewarding prize the higher he went. First displaying his rock-strong abs, followed by his marble-crafted chest, and finally, with his shirt taken completely off, the full extent of his stocky biceps was revealed to her. He had bulk, but it wasn't outlandish, with his body being slim, yet each piece was chiseled out with great care out of the finest material. His body seemed made to look like an uncovered gem, perfect for someone like him, that needed to hide what he truly was. We're in the middle of a game, scolded Momo, her voice cracked the more flustered she was getting from the boys' TV actions. Though she was being dishonest with herself, despite her vocal objection, her eyes betrayed her. Constantly SWCH between staring at his abs, pecs, and other parts of his body. Everything was glistering from the sweat that was built up from working on the stage, highlighting every centimeter of his body in a remarkable light glow. Tossing his shirt to the side, Izuku simply says, it's only going to take a second. I just want to drink some water. What's wrong? Is something this small distracting you? He gave her a sharp look with his eyes, keeping a smug look. Momo quickly looked away, her hands had grabbed onto her skirts and was tightening their grip. She was close to having to get a new one stitched up. It was both infuriating and ungodly intriguing. A defensive mechanism Saiko taught her activated, telling him off while trying to sound pompous and uninterested. And no, do whatever you wish, but please hurry up. We can't spend all day on this, she says, sounding stern but was still trying to get peeks through the corner of her eye. Thanks a lot, you're the best, Yaoyorozu, said Izuku in a voice that sounded closer to a whisper. I told you, just Momo was. Instantly Momo realized she made a mistake. An extreme, terribly, ungodly mistake for a woman like her. Being courteous, she looked back to give a reply and witnessed Izuku drinking water. While at first, that didn't sound like much, reminder, the boy was shirtless. As the cold liquid flowed out of the bottle, not all of it entered his mouth. A good portion had totally missed its target, not on purpose, hitting his soft lips and sliding down. Watching the water drizzle down his well-built body almost made the young raven-haired girl drool. She was too distracted to even question where he got the water bottle from. Her breathing would have you think she just battled half the school by herself with a heart beating harder than a drum during a rock concert. With a satisfied ah, Izuku finished his refreshing drink. He then gave Momo a curious look, before he asked, anything the matter? She hadn't noticed, but a deep red streak had appeared across her face, easily identifiable as it looked like a giant sunburn mark was plastered on that gorgeous pale complexion. She was burning up and her face felt like it was on fire, slowly becoming suffocating to be here. She stammered, Naya. No. Then please, take your turn. Momo shrieked, snapping her attention back to the board. Oh, right. With the game continuing, Izuku took liberties making his moves last as long as possible, continuing to strike a conversation with his opponent. Another splendid move, Izuku complimented. You took another one of my units. I expected no less skill from you. Shuffling in her seat, Momo tried to recover her breathing before hesitantly replied, it's really nothing. Just practice. Just practice doesn't cause this much of a gap. You got over triple the number of units I've currently got and I've barely put a dent in your army. I got less than a minute left, just hold out, Izuku thought to himself. His army was being cornered and he couldn't stall forever. Regardless, he could still keep a consistent tone in his voice. It's those qualities you have that made me want to join the Queens in the first place. Squeaked the girl. You're smart, talented, remarkable player, have the kindest of hearts, and I'll proudly state a fine jewel for the eye to see. Why are you surprised about hearing that? I expect it to be something you hear often. No, it's just Momo suddenly found herself gasping again. That diamond smell popped back up again. Why now? She cried out in her mind, covering her nose with her hand. She muffled her next words. What do you mean by all this? It's almost here, in 10, 9. I guess you could say, I went through all this trouble to join because I wanted to get closer to you. She has what? Izuku burst out laughing after listening to Setsuna. Even Uri's usual stone face seemed to slightly be affected. A type she can't resist, Setsuna repeated, tapping on the paper she wrote on earlier. That girl spends an abundant amount of time reading those old-time heroic stories or sappy romance novels. She unknowingly made her type be himbos that'll slay a dragon and rescue the princess, and those cheesy romance protagonists that'll treat the girl whose hearts they want to steal like a princess. You sure you're not lying? The evidence is there. One time, when we were at the mall, we came across a pro player crust. You mean that guy who acts like we live in medieval times? Yeah, him. He was doing this promotional thing to encourage youth and fitness. The guy had his skirt off and was sweaty as all hell. Momo couldn't stop thinking about the guy. That's all it took. Of course he did one of his formal greetings when we walked up for an autograph, and it was over for her. She froze up. She couldn't even speak proper sentences anymore. Her mind was in La La Land for the rest of the day. She's usually persistent whenever we go shopping, but that day she ended up going into the boys' bathroom by mistake and went to a soup store for clothes. She may be a MSDR at all games, but if she gets flustered enough, she's unable to utilize that talent. The nickname he told her last night, wanting to meet at the school before anyone else was there so they'll be alone. Flirtatious comments, compliments, crafting an entire stage for them. And, oh god, right as Momo questioned if Izuku meant what he said the same way she interpreted, the sun had fully raised, raining down its heavenly light over them. With Izuku's already sweat-covered body, the sunny glow served to make his body glistening brighter than a diamond. The light even helped reveal every scar that was engraved on the boy's skin, appearing as enticing that shows the value of a statue. This is, Momo thought, slowly the red streak on her face grew larger. This is a confession. The gears in her head practically exploded as steam erupted out of her completely red face, suffering a mental meltdown. She tried her best to speak, but nothing except babble left her lips. "W habab tuli ungeria ferior dis," she exclaimed, frantically shaking her head. "By the way, it's your turn," Izuku says, gesturing to the board. "Oh whoa, you blade balu." Momo stammered, quickly moving her pieces as the game carried on despite their conversation. "What am I saying? Speak words." "No, words are only going to make this worse. Just end this game quickly. I'm already winning, just take the throne. I'm coming over Yaoyo Rozu." "Wah. I'm going to get close for a bit," Izuku repeated, getting up from the floor and walking around the table toward her. The raven-haired girl babbled. She was throwing out her hand in front of her like a scared girl trying to wave away a dog. "Porquoi. Vast tu membresser. Genie pens pasque g. Vu dire j apreci la fermise. Biwa. You speak French when you're embarrassed." "That's adorable," commented Izuku, even though he couldn't fully understand what she was saying. He just recognizes the speaking patterns. Seduisant. Adorable. She was on the edge of a mental shutdown. "Don't worry, it'll be harmless. Sans danger. Que vas tu me faire? Genie suis pas très experiment dans ce domaine." "I'm almost there." "Oh god, that smell that's been getting to me. It's his sweat. Why is my body boiling over it? Wait, this isn't the time to be thinking about that. He's getting so close." Wah. She thought, not sure whether or not she wanted him to touch her. "Pas comme ceci. Ni façons pas quelque chose comme ceci en dehors de son Freud. Here, I am. Okay bien. Soyezjustegtil. Momo cried out, closing her eyes. Izuku then picked up the bottle cap that had landed by the girl, casually saying, "Got it, sorry about that. I don't like to litter." "Quai," Momo said, blinking in surprise. "I mean, what? I just wanted to get my bottle cap." "Oh, why, what you think I wanted to get?" "And nothing." "All right. Oh, one more thing I forget to tell you." A small light in her eyes sparked up again, shyly fickling around in her sheet. "Why yes, I win." Momo drafted her sights down to the board. He wasn't lying. A simple enemy peasant unit was standing on her throne square. She shouted again, almost crashing into the board with how close she got to it. With his usual smile, he declared the words Momo dreaded to hear in this situation. Game over. End results. Izuku vs. Momo 6/17. Still shuddering, the red-faced Momo asked, But, how did you? "I used the warp staff," I declared it out loud. "Weren't you paying attention? It's not usually used as the distance they can travel are based on their weight, but peasants are super light since they don't have anything." "I hate that mechanic," Momo shouted out loud, quickly moving to cover her mouth. Izuku only worsened her frustrations by laughing at her anger-filled outburst. "Didn't expect to see that out of you," he says, picking up his shirt from the ground and putting it back on. "Anyways, great game, Momo. I'll need to be going now. I've forgotten to make breakfast for Uri. If I don't, she'll go straight for the cookie jar. In fact, even if I do make breakfast, she'll probably still skip it for junk food. I gotta make sure she eats it as well." Wait. Momo called out to him as he began walking away. Izuku stopped in his tracks, turning away to face the woman who called out his name. As if nothing was wrong, he questions why he was stopped. Yes. Scowling, this time more angered than flustered, Momo asked him, "You did all that stuff on purpose. Why? I was even going to allow you multiple chances to face me if you lost. Why not use your own skills?" Izuku turned back to her, calmly walking toward her. This time Momo didn't flinch or let his alluring sweat scent get to her. She stood strong, glaring at him as he got close to her. With only a small distance between them, Izuku softly says, "If I'm being honest, at the level I am, I would have never beat you fair and square. So you prefer to remain someone who'll only rely on underhanded tricks. It may work here since most games we do are unofficial, but at the national or even regional level, it won't fly." Momo scolded him. She always had a distaste for people who played with others' feelings. That kind of thinking hurt one too many of her friends. Of course not, unfortunately. Right now I'm currently playing for Uri. That's something I don't play around with. So you're willing to do whatever to whoever to win. I thought better of you. For her. I don't care if I have to overthrow the government itself. I will do anything for that girl. Yeah. Izuku brought his face down, leaving less than a centimeter between their forehead, still looking her in the eye. They gazed at each other, seeing who can make the other blink first, showing off their true resolve. Don't bet your life on me bullshitting. Even a drunkard gambler knows not to take this chance with me. He's the black-winged hero type, willing to do whatever dirty deed he has for the one he loves, internally screamed Momo, already a fantasy of Izuku's word formed in her head. My dear Momo, I don't care if I have the most fiendish creatures of hell. I will protect you from anything that intends to harm you. She cracked first, with her eyes slightly tilting away. She grew a puffy pouting before stating, "Fine, do as you please. But if your ways dare irreparably hurt this club, I'll never forgive you." A softer smile appeared across the green-haired boy's face as he told her, "That's fine. I never had any intentions of such malice acts against such fine young ladies I wanted to befriend anyways. You have a funny way of befriending us. Not all of you were that friendly to me as well. I'm pretty sure that Lavender Girl still hates my guts for existing." Izuku chuckled. Saiko's the one exception. She can be difficult, I can tell. Can't wait to see where that comes from, he says, turning around. Momo sighed, relaxing her face. She looked toward the ground as she said, "You really don't want to know." "Still going to. I need all you guys at your best. Oh, one final last thing. Momo went, lifting her face again. Her body stiffened when she felt Izuku's hand softly tap the side of her cheek. With how unexpected it was, she let out a tiny eep. "A scowl that seriously doesn't mesh well with you," Izuku says. "I'll be sure to avoid doing anything to make you that mad again so you won't ever have to make it. Take that as my promise. I mean no harm to your friends if you doubt my previous one." He gave her another smile before walking off. As he left he called out, "See ya, Ponytail." Momo waved him off, shaking her head as she went her way. What trouble wandered to her club's doorstep? She mumbled to herself, "What an unbelievable. Wait, did he call me Ponytail again?" Her face grew red and started exhausting steam again as she pondered if anything Izuku said was true or was it all just pondering. She was very confused right now, in more ways than one, and she didn't know how to express it. The clubroom of the Queens had a suspenseful silence to it this morning, matching the gloom aura of the occupants. The lights in the room were unnecessarily set to be dim. The only noise that could be heard throughout the room was the impatient taps of an aggravated Saiko against the pour table. Her mood soured to the point where she didn't care if she ruined her perfectly shaped nails or drank her daily morning tea. This was serious. The killer queens always knew something was wrong if the pompous queen of them all would stray from her beloved formulaic routine. Saiko would rather watch a classmate drown in a river rather than missing her morning tea. Granted, Saiko never had much respect or care for the human life of anyone she didn't find worthy of her time, but still, it showed how highly she valued her dailies. On the other side of the table sat Momo, like a child who just gave their parents a terrible report card. She sat in shame. Saiko didn't even need to say anything. Everyone there knows what happened, and Momo couldn't feel any more ashamed of herself for letting it happen, especially considering the way it happened. Sadly, Saiko wasn't a woman that would let someone off like that. The lavender-haired spoke in a slow but wrathful tone. "How did you lose?" Momo didn't answer at first. She fell deadly silent as she stared at the floor. "I'm not mad," Saiko continued. "I just want to know, how did my second-in-command lose to that ill-mannered boy who's nobody?" "He's doing pretty well for a nobody," Setsuna stated, looking unlike the sibling that did nothing wrong, so they're able to watch on the sidelines and enjoy the scolding with a smile. She had already settled in to be comfy, stretched out on a couch accompanied with a bag of chips and a bottle of pop. "It's 2-0 him." "Shut it, I'll deal with you later," hissed Saiko before turning back to her ponytailed companion. "What did he do?" I don't know," Momo responded, unable to make eye contact. "He just outplayed me." Saiko rose out of her seat and swiftly strutted around the table to Momo. The imperious girl bent down next to the raven-haired girl to be on eye level with her. Her daunting glare only grew more intense as she leaned forward, analyzing the guilty face of Momo, who only became more unnerved as her clubmate started spotting how improper her form was. "Flustered cheeks, your legs are intersecting, your lips are basically a squiggly line, and your ponytail only double-tied ... It's usually triple for securance," Saiko explained. Her monocled eyes quickly snapped to Momo's backpack that was set on the table. "What's in your backpack?" Momo's body jolted hearing this. She quickly stammered an answer, "And nothing." Quickly Momo went to grab it, but Seiko's hands were quick enough to snatch it out of reach. Like an airport search dog, she ravaged through it until she found what she expected to be in there. A perfume bottle, a special brand from France, only used when she wants a certain aroma when she's doing one of her fantasizing moments. Finally, the most diamond evidence to her guilt, a book. Saiko gasped, holding the relic, the bastardized Castlevania book series. You only read about vampires and werewolves under a certain condition. He flirted with you. With her facade strangled and shot dead, Momo's face collapsed into her hands to hide her embarrassment. I'm sorry, she frantically exclaimed. I can't believe it, that slimy bastard. Saiko shouted, slamming the book down on the table. How dare he use such trickery? For as much of a rodent as he is, I never thought he'll sink this low. Really? Setsuna questioned, raising an eyebrow. Based off his track record, this seems exactly like the thing he'll do. We've only known him for less than a week, yet whenever it comes to playing a game he usually tries to cheat. And when he can't instantly cheat a situation, he usually runs away to think up ways to cheat. The lavender-haired girl's attention soon SWCH focused to snarky Greenette. That brings me to my next question, states Saiko, standing back up. How did our little problem discover these things about Momo? I don't know, Setsuna nonchalantly shrugged. That kid is full of surprises. Wasn't he spying on us like a few days ago, which almost got him beat up? Be that as it may, there's no way he could have found out about Momo's depraved habits within his time here. I've kept track, she hasn't gone to her usual places for her deviancy for quite a while. You've been keeping track, Momo softly commented. It's not that difficult, Momo, Setsuna told her. You're terrible at hiding it. We just pretend not to notice to save you the embarrassment. Geez, mumbled the now red-faced Momo, silently hiding her face from the embarrassment again. We can discuss her shameful actions later, Saiko interjected. In a slow-be demanding attitude she approached the relaxing Setsuna, standing over her with her hands prompted upon her wide hips. My curiosity now lay on you. Why? Questioned Setsuna. Don't see a need for it. Glaring daggers into her, Saiko responded. I think it should. Someone is spilling information to our enemies. And you think it's me, Setsuna bluntly said. She didn't feel like doing mental gymnastics here. She was going to be suspected no matter what she does to get around it. A direct confrontation can deter people as much as avoidance. Do you have an issue with that? Nope, you're right to do so. Then do you have a defense? Betrayal of this kind is unforgivable as a member. I got a defense for you, Setsuna states, getting up off the couch. She dusted off her uniform before carrying over her chips and drink to the table Momo was at. You can have the rest of these. And where are you going? Saiko called out to the sharp-toothed girl. She hadn't even begun the questioning barrage. You don't trust me, right? Setsuna told her clubmate, stretching her arms and cracking her neck. Then instead of sitting here and talking out of our butt like a politician, how about I just go out and take care of our cute little problem? Once she was done stretching, she looked more like she was about to go on a gentle stroll than to take care of the pressing issue. Looking back to her clubmates, she gives them an impartial glance before continuing. Okay, great talk. See you, Momo and Sai. Without another word, Setsuna walked out of the room. She left with such speed that Saiko did not have the chance to tell her that they weren't done talking. Once she was out of the room, she sported one of her signature grins, one that really showed off her sharp teeth. Now comes the fun part. I'm sorry, Izuku, but I can't put this off for any longer, stated Setsuna. The intensity of her voice had peaked. It's fine, Izuku responded, giving his usual lax attitude. You gotta do what you gotta do. I expected something like this happening, so no strong feelings. Glad you understand. Now it's time for our date. Setsuna cheered as the pair was in front of them all. Since when was this a date? Izuku chuckled. I thought you just wanted my help with your shopping. That's basically a date, the Greenette shrugged, not minding the smaller details. Not bad-looking teenage guy, attractive teenage girl, and we're going out to a mall. That's a date if I've ever seen one. Does a first date usually involve bringing one's sister along? Izuku asked, nudging his head toward Eri, who popped out her little head from behind his shoulder. I once knew a guy who brought his grandmother to a first date, so this isn't the worst start ever, Setsuna states. She then playfully waltzed her way behind him to get closer to Eri, saying, besides, I think me and the SQR are connecting, so why not have her join? In her usually stoic manner, Eri responded, our relationship is strictly business. You raise me up high for my enjoyment and I'll allow you to be close to my brother, a fair trade. Haha, see, we're getting along. If Izuku was being honest, he didn't really care about any of the formalities. She can call this their premarital practice for all he cares, not like he's going to commit to anything. Scratching the side of his face, he says, that's good, fewer headaches for me when you two are around. Now, what did you need again? Not much, Setsuna answered, playfully poking Eri's cheek only to have the little girl try to swat the hand away. I just needed us to be out together for a while so I can tell my clubmates that I challenged you and promptly lost. Then why of all places a mall? Because it's the last place they'll look for us. Saiko wouldn't be caught dead here and Momo only comes by when she needs to get something. This makes this small mid-tier place basically our haven. Interesting trivia, Izuku mumbled, rubbing his chin as he made a mental note of this. Mid-thought, Setsuna grabs one of his wrists telling him, always scheming, that's good. But come on, you can take a day off, let's have some fun. With no reason to resist, Izuku went along with Setsuna as she dragged him throughout her favorite spots. Of course, Setsuna took him to some of the more predictable stores one would assume a girl will go to at the mall. That meant Izuku became quickly associated with many of the mall's clothing stores. Suffering the fate of many boyfriends, husbands, and sons, Izuku had to sit by board in a store that completely disinterested him while the girl tried on a bunch of different outfits. While it started out innocent enough, Izuku was right to guess that the devious greenette will start getting a bit crafty. Setsuna's first sets of clothing were fairly moderate, outfits Izuku could see any young girl wearing for casual events and social gatherings. From a wide array of colorful sweaters, tops, CRP tops, jackets, and skirts, she went through them all. A simple size check wasn't good enough for Setsuna. With each outfit she gave a little performance for Izuku, showing off each dress while emulating the kind of personality someone wearing those clothes might have. From a shy demeanor with a conservative dress to a more powerful stance and aggressive approach with fierce outfits, she put great effort into each facade. Izuku is also starting to notice a common interest in theater and acting among the killer queens. He found the thought humorous. While Izuku wasn't one who liked to define people off of stereotypes, his first image of a club solely of women who are considered among the best gamers UA have to offer didn't have room for something as hobbyist-like performances. He expected a more if this can't help me become a better gamer than it's worthless mentality. Yet, Momo and Setsuna seem to have their own interests that diverge from their main goal. The only exception at the moment is Saiko, though the idea of finding out what she's into greatly intrigued Izuku, and seeing it may not be pleasant, but it wasn't like he was new to painful experiences. Izuku's inner thoughts were quickly interrupted by Setsuna wanting to show him another outfit she found. When he looked up, he saw that this time she started doing things differently. Instead of how most people shop, trying to find the perfect individuals of breathe and shirts that go well with each other, she went for full professional outfits. The first one she picked was of course an officer, using a baton to poke and taunt about him being a person of suspicious activity. "You better not be up to any trouble or else I'm going to have to take you in and punish you myself," she faked scolded, giving him a close view of her dark navy uniform. Izuku gave her a slight chuckle as he watched her patrol around him as she was looking for what she called criminal scum, getting some entertainment from it all. Eventually, her stern sights returned to him, commanding, "All right, you seem to be clean. Keep it that way. I see you with anything weird and I won't be afraid of searching you." Playing along, Izuku raised his hands up to reply, "I'll keep it in mind but no promises. You got a problem with that, then you might as well take me in." At first, Setsuna seemed shocked that he was going along with it so casually and calmly. Usually, she gets more ecstatic reactions with the slightest tease or a cold stare from men who aren't into that stuff. Thankfully for her, Izuku had given Eri his phone so she wouldn't whine about being bored. With the little girl completely distracted with playing phone games, Izuku didn't have a choice besides giving the sharp-toothed girl his full attention. That sharp smile exponentially grew as she responded, "Nah, I'll just keep a watchful eye on you." "Your choice," Izuku shrugged, resting his head against his palm. After that quick interaction, Setsuna went and changed to a different profession. This time opting for a doctor outfit, her buttoned-up white lab coat rested softly on her shoulders. Izuku's knowledge in the medical field wasn't vast and the things he did know weren't for the best reasons, making it strong to make the same witty banter. He did manage to come up with a comment on something as soon as she came out. "Really, a doctor?" "Yeah," Setsuna answered, giving a twirl to put all its angles on display. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing, it fits fine. I just expected a nurse outfit considering the theme." "Heh, you dirty boy, that's only for special occasions. How about a few more dates before that? Besides, there are some things a nurse aren't allowed to do." "Okay, there's a young child next to me. I suggest we keep it at that," Izuku states, looking down at the white-haired munchkin next to him. Eri was still focused on her game, laying on her stomach across the chair as she kicked her feet behind her carefree. A smiling Setsuna rolled her eyes at this, as if she's even paying attention. "By the way it looks, a bomb can go off next to her and she probably won't flinch." "That's not far from the truth," Izuku stated. He looked a bit dazed as he answered. After one last change of a firefighter, which led to a few hose jokes, Setsuna finally had her fill with costume changes. Despite this not being an event Izuku had any interest in, he still managed to get some worth out of it. It made him familiar with worthwhile clothing stores in the mall. While most of them seemed themed toward women, at least he knew the good place to go in case he needed to buy some for Eri. Speaking of Eri, Setsuna attempted to get her involved in the whole going through multiple dresses thing, but it was swiftly and effectively shut down with a few cold words. After a few more stops that Izuku found intriguing, mostly when they stopped to try some of the VR shops, they stopped by a store and Setsuna somehow managed to pick a green bunny doll that Eri refused to put down. Since the toy was too bulky, it made it difficult for her to ride off of Izuku's back and so she decided to walk. They soon took a quick break at the food court. Glutinous as always, Eri had little self-control in what she ordered, gathering a small artery-clogging feast for herself. Setsuna went with a reasonable spicy chicken sandwich meal. Finally, Izuku only ordered a large plate of fries for himself that he split with Eri. Not hungry? Setsuna asked him, noticing his particular choice. Or are you one of those guys who eats before a date? I'm just not a heavy eater, Izuku answered, half chewing on a fry. He picked up another one with his left hand and pointed it toward Eri, saying, with the little one's appetite I call our pairing a blessing, not like we have infinite money anyways. Eri didn't answer, her face was embedded into the buns of her burger. Despite her efforts, her tiny mouth couldn't seem to get a big enough bite from the massive burger to satisfy her. While seeing a child trying to stuff something somewhere it can't fit was amusing, Izuku didn't want her to end up choking. He takes the burger from her grasp and cuts it in half using one of the given knives before handing it back now that it was easier to consume. So it's just you two living together? Setsuna asked. If so, how are your living conditions? Sipping some water, Izuku informed her. Yeah, it's just the two of us. No need to worry, we're not living under a bridge or anything crazy like that. We have our condo. Your own condo. How did you manage that at your age? Izuku only answered with a smirk. While usually he would lie to that question or draw the conversation off topic, he had a feeling Setsuna would be someone he can get away with such a response. A gesture Setsuna responded with her own smile. All right then, keep your secrets. What about you? Izuku asked, SWCH the focus on her. What's your situation? Nothing special, Setsuna shrugged. I'm living with a few friends. The girls? No, not them. I have friends outside of the club in the school, you know. No offense, but besides about 3 people, they aren't exactly the crowd of people I can be around for too long. My style of things isn't always to their taste, I gotta have some time to just be myself. So which are you right now? Izuku asked. There was a blank and cold look in his eyes even though he was still smiling. Setsuna responded, her tone emulated ignorance. Is the person I'm talking to right now the real you? Or is it the same you I saw trying on all those dresses? How are you sure either are different? The brunette told him, sprinkling some cutesy sass on her words, both can still be me. Izuku didn't blink as he answers, because unless you're actually a decently well-off, 40-year-old who managed to keep the appearance of a desirable young woman, and a genius multitasker, I don't think you can be a fashion model, police officer, nurse doctor, and a firefighter, who, I might add, decided to spend her days playing games with other students. You saying I can't be either of those things? Questioned Setsuna, pouting her lips for a hoax. No, a model and freaky superhero like policemen are things I can certainly see you doing. A firefighter works as well, but I don't know how the medical field will feel dealing with another unethical doctor. Unethical? Setsuna exclaimed. I have yet to do anything. Yet, emphasized Izuku, raising a CCKY eyebrow at her before eating another fry. The sharp-toothed girl snorted at his reply, having to cover his mouth to try to stop herself from how strong she was laughing. How long it's been since she experienced this amount of entertainment. It was always why she liked talking to new people, and even more so talking to the ones that shake up her stagnant world. Are you two flirting? Eri asked, taking a small break from her food and looking at the two. If you are, then stop it. It'll sour my food's taste with all your sweetness. Okay, that's an oxymoron of a sentence, Izuku mumbled with a chuckle. And no, we're not who the FCK brought you a salad. Setsuna raised her hand. That was me. Why? Got it from one of the restaurants here that actually serves a good salad that doesn't lie to you about how healthy it is. That's impossible. If that was true, then you would have just given her nothing. You suddenly oppose salads now. No, I just know the last time I gave Eri a salad it became a tossed salad. It was awful, it tasted like dirt and plants, Eri whined. That's what a vegetable is, Izuku snarky replied. Just dirt and edible leaves that we get nutrition from. The point of a salad is to make them almost as equally satisfying as eating meat without it slightly killing you. Eri pouted at this, responding, well, because of it I couldn't eat the lettuce off my burger for a week after realizing that was what it tasted like by itself, and assumed it only made my sandwiches taste worse. It wasn't until I tried a taco that my opinion on it changed and I'll only eat the good ones. The good what? The good food that uses lettuce well. There's some of the good ones I'll accept. Why can't more people continue making food like that, not those stupid dirt plant cereal with no milk? Izuku experienced a rare occasion that comes once in a full moon where he doesn't have a reply he feels right using. From dubious undertones with a look at what I have to deal with expression he turns back to Setsuna. With the calmest but exhausted voice he simply says, I struggle to keep her healthy. A smirking Setsuna told the defeated Greenit, you're just not going at it the right way. Children are dumb and impulsive. Hey, Eri called out, still keeping her monotone voice. Sorry, Setsuna said, children are ignorant, vulnerable, gullible, and impulsive. That's better. Wait a minute. No matter how stubborn the child is, with the right thing wagered you can get them to do whatever you want. Izuku threw out his hands in a ceding gesture, telling her, take your shot, but I've done everything that isn't illegal. And then some illegal stuff. Setsuna shifted her posture to be aimed toward Eri, who stared back at her with her unchanging blank eyes. The two stared at each other before saying, if you eat at least half of it, I'll lift you up to a place really high. That was it? Izuku asked, his face scrunched up from how barebone it was. Simplicity is key, Setsuna told him. Like I said, she's a kid. They're not strong to impress or please. Just give them something that has a concept outside of their little mind. They'll feel like they were given a dinosaur. Izuku looked conflicted for a bit before saying, understandable, but there was higher expectation of what someone of your caliber would do. Of my caliber, repeated Setsuna. From all the costume changes and talent I expected some secret agent plan. I just said that simple makes all you think I'm talented. I'm sure a bunch of boys and some girls absolutely would enjoy your little fashionable show, Izuku pointed out. Well, too bad for them, the brunette said, taking a sip from her soda, because I usually only save it for special cases. So I'm a special case? Izuku asked, raising an eyebrow at her again. Setting her drink back down, restating a previous statement. Well, we are on a date. I'm starting to question your aggression on declaring this a date, maybe. That was when Eri stepped in again. Are you guys flirting again? Are you serious? Right in front of my salad. Izuku was about to turn around and call Eri out on lying, but then was hit with the sucker punch of a surprise when he saw Eri was stuffing her face with some salad. I mean, dang, you're actually eating it, Izuku mumbled. Told ya, said Setsuna grinning, they just need the right bait. After another hour of walking around, and Izuku felt a bit off at first, not always having Eri with him. But not on his back, but he was starting to get used to being lighter. No other store brought much attention to the older people, but they kept themselves entertained with witty banter. Eventually, Setsuna advised they go to a store she heard was built recently, but suggests they get there by the other entrance of the mall so they can get some fresh air as well. Neither Izuku nor Eri had any complaints. As Izuku and Setsuna talked, they eventually reached the parking lot. Continuing off of a topic that was left unresolved before. I'm not going to be judged about how I eat yogurt without a spoon from someone who wants personas for every dress, Izuku states, giving the most straight face without breaking out into a chuckle. In his hands was a takeout bag. He never ended up finishing his fries. Setsuna nonchalantly shrugs as she responds, as I said before, those outfits don't mean much to me. It just feels nice to once in a while pretend like you're not you and that your life is something simpler. You know, you're a confusing girl, you know that. Not the response I was expecting from my deep emotional disclosure. But okay, explain why. Sorry if it sounded too disingenuous. I just found it a bit contradictory that at one moment you speak about how much you need to be away from your usual friends from school like Momo and Saiko, since you say you can't fully be yourself around them. Yet you spend your free time pretending to be anyone but you. That's kinda confusing, like being a desert begging for at least a cup of water, but then as soon as you get to a town you wolf down a bowl of pretzels and dry crackers. I get your perspective. Though there's one thing you got wrong. What? I'm not by myself, Setsuna stated, taking a short hop in front of him and turning. She leaned her torso forward in a playful manner before continuing. I'm with you. Izuku halted his movement, replying, so I'm among the others, you can't just be yourself around. No, you're being inaugurated into my palate. Suo, you're testing me. I'm just having you sample on all sides of me and seeing which reaction I like to experience the most. What's wrong with just giving me the whole product and seeing if I like it? Because I come in many different pieces that just don't fit together. She took another daring step forward before softly resting her fingertips on his chest. But keep saying the right stuff and maybe I'll let you see all of me. That drew a humorous chuckle out of Izuku. Haha. I'll watch it. Apparently Eri doesn't like it when people flirt, especially when it involves me. Right, Eri? The dead silence that followed instantly unnerved Izuku. He snapped himself around to look behind him and his eyes widened when he saw no one behind him. Eri, he called out, hoping she had just wandered away a bit. Oh my, Setsuna called out in an over-the-top nature. Was someone too busy trifling with me to watch over their child? The air turned cold as Izuku turned back to her. He wasn't smiling this time. That usual calm, relaxing nature of his was nowhere in sight. His eyes were squinted with a shade over them as he gave Setsuna a striking deadpan glare. Witnessing this was like seeing the sun drop down to give rise to the dark side of the moon. Wow, looks like I'm not the only one keeping a side of themselves hidden, commented Setsuna, seemingly unmoved from his changed demeanor. She was still doing a preppy cutesy gesture with her body as she spoke. But calm your horses, I just dropped her off somewhere really close. She can have fun while we handle some business. After taking a deep breath, Izuku allowed his face to soften a bit as he asked, what business? Well, we still got a game to play today. That was it. I thought we had this settled already. We did, boo. I want the deal to change. No matter what the deal will be, I will still assure you that I'll make it so that Eri will be allowed to hang out in the clubroom anytime she wants. But the method it'll happen may alter a bit. Not that you care, right? You just wanted her to be in. Go on. So how about it? We play a game. If you win it'll stay the same, if not, how about you give up on being club president and you'll make Momo's vote go to me? Why? Just to get the other girls' suspicion off of me. They think I'm giving you information on how to beat them. Ugh, Saiko can be so pushy over it, Setsuna groaned, rolling her eyes at the memory. Izuku with the straightest face just said, but you are doing exactly that. I know, doesn't mean I want to get caught doing it. It might hurt my trustability if I'm open about it, then it'll be even harder to trick people later. Izuku opened his mouth as if he was about to say something, but then just shrugged his shoulder as he understood why. There were multiple times where he needed to build a bit of trust in someone he knows he's going to fool later in order to make something work. Granted, he strayed from doing it too much from actual friends, associates he has a long-time relationship with. It's a common rule for any trickster to refrain a bit with friends. By the time Izuku looked back, Setsuna was already setting down a box on the grass. She looked back at him and waved, "Come on, let's get started." Now feeling calmer, Izuku went over and sat on the opposite side of the box as Setsuna. He gestured for her to start whatever she had going. Seeing how quickly she set this up, she definitely planned this out, which is why he's going to do his own thing by eating the leftover French fries he saved. The brunette brought out 3 red plastic cups and a single small orange, setting them on the box. Setsuna continued, "I'm sure this game needs no explanation. Pick the cup that is under, best out of 3. You just explained the game you said needed no explanation." Izuku mumbled. "Don't sass me," Setsuna told him as she set everything up. Right as she was about to put the under the middle cup, Izuku interrupted. "Can I at least check the materials? Make sure you didn't rig anything." "You really th. Yes. All right, do as you wish," gesticulated Setsuna, tossing up to deal with her boredom. After a quick check, they were ready to begin. Game set. Izuku vs Setsuna, 0-0. Start. "Keep your eyes on the prize," Setsuna told him. Her hands slowly approached the cups. Izuku has seen this trick before, a swindler tactic you'll see on any shady street providing entertainment. Going slow at first for a false sense of security before they turn it up and the trickery begins. Like clockwork, Setsuna began shuffling the cup at a decent pace first, but then it quickly turned to a high speed. Izuku was almost impressed at how fast the cups moved. They were like blurs as they moved in her hands. Not that the speed mattered anyways, Izuku had already rigged the game in his favor. When he checked the cups, his hand was coated in 2 substances. His left hand was oily from the French fries he just ate, which he discreetly left greasy fingerprints coated a spot on top of the cup so he can always identify them judging by how the sun reflects off of it. On his right hand, a small amount of grass BLD he quickly made when he sat down. He used that to coat the other one the same one as well, which caused the slightest green tint to be seen if looked close enough. The red plastic cup Setsuna was using was the kind you'll see at a college party. More importantly, they had that mini indent under it. With the tiny amount of each he used, the spot he put them on, and how a cup shuffler's hands usually never touch that spot, while shuffling he can tell which cup it's under without even watching her shuffle. Even if the same chance of her touching it by mistake does happen, there's only so much a human hand can pick up from so little substance. It's like wiping up ketchup you spilled on a table. You can wipe it with your hand as much as you want, but eventually you're going to reach a point where the signs of ketchup being spilled are still there, but your hand can't wipe any more of it away. That's why we have sponges. All Izuku had to see was which cup she initially used to cover the. It's either going to be the greasy mark one, the grass kid marked one, or the none properly marked one. A parlor trick, Izuku thought. Any kid can come up with this cheat. When Setsuna stopped, Izuku pointed to the grease-marked one. "Good choice," the brunette said, lifting the cup and showing the. Izuku vs Setsuna, 1-0. "Was this really worth the trouble?" Izuku had asked. "Yes, not like there's much at stake," Setsuna tells him. This time he puts the girl that was marked with grass BLD over the. "I just feel like if I win this the things I want to happen will be more in my control. If you say so, I can care less as long as I get what I want." Once again, Setsuna shuffled the cups. With the same speed and tricks as the last one, which was impressive to see, but as long as his marks were there, he was going to win this. When she was done, she asked him to choose again. Without hesitation, Izuku chose the cup he saw her cover the with. "Let's see the results," Setsuna said, giving a little drum roll with it. With a simple hand motion, she lifted the cup and there was nothing there. That woke Izuku up. Izuku vs Setsuna, 1-1. Something was definitely off, none of the marks on the cups were disturbed and he was sure he saw the right one. "Uo, a tie. Sudden death time." Setsuna cheered, enjoying herself. She lifted the unmarked cup revealing the. She recovered the with the none-marked one. "All or nothing time," she informed him. "You feeling lucky?" "I think we both know we're relying on luck. The question is who'll bend that luck to their will," Izuku replied. "You're putting in that work to keep saying the right things. Guess you really want to see all of me," Setsuna told him with a wink. "No," Izuku plainly responded. "I'm usually like this. It's almost like an unhealthy habit I can't stop. It's really uncontrollable at times, but hey, that's my life. Anyways, shuffle. I think I got the trick." The sharp-toothed girl tilted her head asking, "Already?" "Possibly," shrugged Izuku. "I honestly had no concrete idea what she did, but hey, absolutes in this business is basically a myth. I'm just going to wing it." Once again, Setsuna began shuffling the cups again. She was no longer holding back, moving the cups at full speeds, and she showed off all the tricks. It was becoming strong to follow. Like all the other times, Izuku didn't bother keeping track of the cups. Izuku was about to pull what some kids call a pro gamer move. He slammed the side of the box, not strong enough to knock the box away but enough to rattle the box and stun Setsuna. In her panic, she grabbed all 3 of her cups and held them down so they wouldn't tip over. "What was that?" she asked, pausing for a moment before starting back up on her speed. "Something," Izuku answered. "You finished yet?" Suspicious at first, Setsuna relinquished her hands from the cup. "Yeah," she said, backing off from the cups. "Choose your fate." "It's all or nothing," thought Izuku, pointing toward the unmarked cup. A malicious smile spawned from Setsuna when she lifted the cup and showed nothing was there. Well, Setsuna taunts. Her other hand went toward the grease-marked cup and placed itself on top of it. "It seems like I will." Before she could finish her sentence, Izuku leaped out of his seat. He grabbed the wrist of the hand that was about to lift the grease-marked cup and held it tightly at the end of her sleeve. Just as quickly, Izuku did the same except to her shoulder, getting a tight enough grip that she couldn't get away. "Hey," Setsuna yelled, "what's the big idea?" Izuku didn't answer. Instead, he slowly glided his hand that was on Setsuna's shoulder down until he hit a small bump on her arm. After a moment of fumbling around with this bump, she managed to move it down to her sleeve. Reaching into her sleeves, he pulls out the that he's supposed to be finding. Izuku held it in front of her with a smirk. "I can explain," Setsuna calmly says. "You cheated," Izuku states, leaning back before he announced the words. Note, when a player is caught cheating, depending on the situation, it can lead to a multitude of penalties. Usually elimination, a disadvantage being given, or forfeiting a point. Izuku versus Setsuna, 2-1. "Game over." "Gah, I lost," Setsuna playfully shouted, softly pulling on her hair to simulate frustration. Once she was done messing around, she asked, "What gave it away?" "A guess." "I mean, it was off that I never heard the sound of a banging against the inside of a plastic cup," Izuku told her. "There was a trick people in my home city used to do when playing this game that's similar to what you did. The setup was usually a tall table, a special small bead with a metal center, and a magnet hidden in their sleeves. They were excellent shufflers, but whenever they feel like someone can actually guess the right one, they'll hide it in their sleeves. It took a moment for me to realize you could do the same thing, but even easier with the cheat your quirk gives you. I thought I could increase the odds of you doing it by rattling you a bit when you smack the box. Yup, thought that might make you think I'm onto something and make you go for the safe panic option ... even though I wasn't," Izuku states. "Darn, here I thought I could get you by separating you from Eri before giving you any time to prepare for me. Seriously, what was your trick?" "The box. Cause all I know is that you made a piece of your body into it and painted it orange, but I'm not sure if I want to know which part." "Pervert. It's a legitimate question." "Well, a lady gotta keep her secrets." Fine. "Now, where's Eri?" "Right, she's..." "Eri, get down there," Izuku called out. Both he and Setsuna had re-entered the mall to see Eri sitting on top of a tall display model that almost reached the roof. "No," Eri replied. She was still clutching her stuffed green bunny tight. Even though she still had the blank expression on her face, Izuku can just sense that she was enjoying herself. "Do it or I'll take Bucky O'Hare away for a week. His name is Snuffleupagus and he's staying with me." Izuku sighed, turning to Setsuna and saying, "Can't believe you put her up there." "She wanted to be high," replied Setsuna, "so I gave her high." Eri nodded her head to herself, having the perfect view of watching over all the people below here. They looked like ants to her. Despite her brother's insistence, she bathes in the glory of being up there. "I see no god up here," she said to herself, "other than me."